Chapter 693. Not to mention 2 Devil King level nether demons, even one Li Daochong was no match for them. Li Daochong was almost killed by a fiendish python. The fiendish python was only a devil general at most. After Li Daochong entered the Blackwood Star, his cultivation did not grow much, only a little stronger than when he was in the Black Prison. If he fought the fiendish python again, Li Daochong was not sure that he could win. The strength of a Devil King level nether demon was not a matter of going up a level. The higher the level, the more the strength increased. Now, Li Daochong's ability to fight across realms had almost reached the level of 2 realms. No matter in which era, which race, or among the nether ghosts, it was incredible to defeat an opponent 2 realms higher than oneself. It was already incredible to be able to fight across 1 realm, let alone 2 realms. Of course, it was powerful, but Li Daochong found that he seemed to have reached some limit in the battle with the fiendish python. Because the fiendish python was only a low-level devil general among the nether ghosts, but he later absorbed a lot of human souls and advanced to a middle-level devil general. Li Daochong could not judge whether he had reached the level of a high-level devil general. But if the fiendish python had not absorbed those human souls, Li Daochong could have crushed him at that time. But after the fiendish python only jumped a small realm, Li Daochong immediately fell into a disadvantage, and almost lost the fight. The fiendish python had just jumped a realm, and his devil chi was not stable and had not been consolidated. That was to say, the fiendish python could only be regarded as a low-level devil general at that time. If the fiendish python had consolidated a little a few days earlier, the result of the battle would have been Li Daochong would have been crushed to pieces. This was enough to prove that as the realm increased, the strength would increase exponentially. Li Daochong estimated his fighting strength. His cultivation was at the middle stage of apotheosis realm. His actual spiritual chi was about the same as the late stage of voiding realm. His fighting strength should be about the same as the early stage of combination realm. If he went all out, he could reach the level of the middle stage of combination realm. But he had to fight with his life. In other words, he was almost at the level of a middle-level devil general, or a weak one. The current Li Daochong wasn't even a match for high-level demon generals, let alone demon kings. At the demon king level, one would be an overlord in the Hades, controlling a vast star field and possessing the ability to destroy the heavens and earth. Blackwood Planet was a super-large cultivation planet. If he wanted to destroy it, it would only take a few minutes. The fact that the 2 demon kings hadn't destroyed Blacktree Star was likely because they couldn't do anything about it. Otherwise, he could have just destroyed Blacktree Planet. There was no need for him to wander around Blacktree Planet. Li Daochong glanced at the puzzled Hu Ling and didn't keep her in suspense, continuing to speak his thoughts. If I can't win, I can always hide. Since the entrance to the Ghost Manor can be changed at will, why not make use of it? Xie Baoshan, who had been listening worriedly at the side and had also told Li Daochong that he couldn't defeat the Demon King but still wanted to go to the Spirit Sea, suddenly had a glint in his eyes when he heard this. He slapped his head. Good idea, exalted immortal is wise. Hu Ling who had been frowning, felt her heart lighten. It was as if she had eaten a calming pill, and her panicked emotions calmed down. That's right, the entrance to the Ghost Palace could be changed at will. It was also a mobile Na-Yu space. Li Daochong paused, then said, There are too many secrets on Black Jupiter. If they fall into the hands of the underworld demons, there will be endless trouble. It might even bring a calamity to the human race. There are legacies left behind by immortals, demon veins, and countless resources and mystic realms. Although Li isn't a great hero, he doesn't want these to fall into the hands of the underworld demons. The Ghost Palace is vast, we can take everything we can. Hu Ling looked at Li Daochong in surprise. In her eyes, Li Daochong had always been someone who didn't care about things that didn't concern him. Had he changed today? It was normal for Hu Ling to have such thoughts, because she didn't understand Li Daochong at all. Exalted Immortal, if you have any plans, please tell me. I am willing to follow your orders, Xie Baoshan hurriedly said. Let's enter the ghost palace first, Li Daochong said, then disappeared. The three of them looked at each other, then flew toward the ghost palace. Soon, the four of them arrived at the ghost palace. The switch to the ghost palace's entrance was some kind of teleportation array set up by immortals. Simply put, the ghost palace was the ghost palace's central control room. Li Daochong's spiritual force entered the jade token again. Just now, he didn't carefully understand some of the methods to control the ghost palace. A few minutes later, Li Daochong's spiritual force withdrew from the jade token. This time, he didn't let Xie Baoshan operate it. Instead, he tried it himself. We're here, Li Daochong said absent-mindedly after he finished operating it. Li Daoyu has reached the spirit sea? Hu Ling didn't understand. Li Daochong shook his head. No, it's the demon vein. The demon spirit was stunned. It never thought that Li Daochong's first stop would be the demon vein. Demon vein? Hu Ling was confused. What? Didn't Daoist who want to revive the demon race? You should be happy that Li Li came to the demon vein first. Why are you so surprised? Could it be that Daoist who doesn't want to take the demon vein away? Li Daochong asked indifferently. Take the demon vein away? This time, it was the demon spirit's turn to be confused. This idea was too bold. Not taking it? Li Daochong turned to look at the demon spirit. The demon spirit was at a loss for words. After a pause it said, You'll have to ask the two revered dragons. Those two shadow dragons are just the guardian spirits of the array. They can't leave the array that seals the demon vein. They're just there to stand guard. Do you still need to ask them? Li Daochong frowned slightly. The demon spirit's indecisiveness was purely a waste of time. Exalted immortally, if you want to transfer the demon vein, the revered dragons won't agree. Unless you kill them, the demon spirit said honestly. Li Daochong glanced at the time on his wristwatch. Every second of delay would increase the number of variables. Then let's go find them. Li Daochong silently recited an incantation. A divine will shot out, and a small door appeared behind the ghost palace. Li Daochong opened the door and walked in. Xie Baoshan was stunned again. How come he didn't know that there was a small door there? The three of them followed through the small door. When they came out, they realized that the small door was actually connected to the entrance of the ghost palace. After exiting the small door, a spatial tunnel appeared, and they were out of the ghost palace. Outside was the withered tree that had entered the demon vein. The demon spirit opened the door. Li Daochong walked in front, and the three of them walked in together. When the demon spirit passed through the cave and entered the demon vein, he felt uneasy. Based on his understanding of the revered dragons, they probably wouldn't agree. However, when he saw the revered dragons in front of the demon vein protection array, the demon spirit was completely conquered by Li Daochong. When the revered dragons saw Li Daochong this time, not only did they not have a condescending attitude, they also didn't have any racial prejudice. Instead, they were very respectful to Li Daochong, and even a little fearful. The revered dragons, who had always been high and mighty, actually addressed Li Daochong as exalted immortal. The demon spirit couldn't help but wonder what happened when Li Daochong left last time. Could it be that Li Daochong defeated the revered dragons? Otherwise, why would the revered dragons be afraid of Li Daochong? Taking away the demon vein wasn't Li Daochong's idea on the spur of the moment. On one hand, it was for the sake of righteousness. He couldn't let it fall into the hands of the Hades. On the other hand, Li Daochong also had his own selfish motive. He wanted to ask the revered dragons about immortal Ganyang. Li Daochong had to figure out the origin of this immortal Ganyang. When he arrived at the ghost palace, he felt that something was strange. Everything here was exactly the same as the structure of the underworld in his previous life. Li Daochong didn't believe that there could be such a coincidence. It wouldn't be a big deal if only one or two names were the same, but it would be strange if everything was the same. In fact, the revered dragons had already sensed danger when the two demons appeared. When they heard that Li Daochong had a way to transfer the demon vein, the revered dragons immediately agreed. Blackwood Star was no longer safe. If they didn't transfer the demon vein, they wouldn't be safe. The revered dragons didn't have a choice. Immortally, this demon array isn't fixed. It's just that it takes time to transfer. The revered Black Dragon and I have to work together to activate the demon array. After that, the revered Black Dragon and I will fall into a deep sleep. During this time, the demon array's defense will be greatly reduced. Before the revered Black Dragon and I wake up, the demon race's lifeline will be in your hands. The revered White Dragon sighed helplessly. Revered White Dragon, don't worry. As long as the demon vein is transferred to the Immortal Mansion, Li will be safe. Li Daochong immediately said. However, he referred to the Ghost Palace as the Immortal Mansion. Li Daochong didn't have time to explain to the revered dragons. He wanted to save as much time as possible. The revered White Dragon and revered Black Dragon looked at each other before shrinking into the demon array. Revered dragons, how long will it take? Li Daochong immediately asked. 2 hours. The revered White Dragon's voice came from within the demon array. Li Daochong frowned. 2 hours wasn't a short time. It was enough time for the twin demons to destroy the entire Spirit Sea. Are there any restrictions on the transfer? Li Daochong continued asking. As long as it's on Blackwood Star, it can be transferred anywhere. Immortal Li only needs to use your divine sense to leave the spatial coordinate. The revered White Dragon's voice sounded again. Li Daochong's expression relaxed. This was simple. This way, he didn't need to wait here for the revered dragons to activate the demon array. He then sent his divine sense into the demon array. Revered dragons, I've left the coordinates. Li still has other matters to attend to. I'll take my leave first. Li Daochong said as he left the demon vein. Immortal Li, please. Throughout the entire process, Hu Ling Yao Ling, and Xie Baoshan were merely spectators. Once again returning to the Ghost Palace, Li Daochong prepared to activate the Ghost Palace's spirit array again. Hu Ling suddenly said, Immortal Li, can you go to Star Island? Li Daochong didn't know what Star Island was. His next destination was Spirit Island Gainei. Star Island is a large island where Spirit Sea cultivators gather? Hu Ling then sent the voice transmission that Fairy Julie sent her to Li Daochong. Li Daochong's eyes moved slightly, then he nodded and said, Please provide the location of Star Island, Daoist Hu. Hu Ling immediately sent the specific location of Star Island to Li Daochong through her divine sense. Then, Li Daochong activated the spirit array technique. In the blink of an eye, the entrance to the Ghost Palace appeared below Star Island. Almost at the same time, a loud boom came from above. Even the Ghost Palace's space was affected. Above Star Island, Zhou Luoyin and Mo Jitian looked down at the Spirit Sea cultivators below. In their eyes, they were just a group of ants that could be crushed at any time. Mobile version update website, M. Chapter 694. After Mo Jitian and Zhou Luoyin entered the Spirit Sea, they swept through everything in their path, killing everyone and destroying any island they saw. Interrogating them was completely unnecessary. With so many human souls, they could just devour them and obtain the memories in their souls. After so many years, the spiritual energy laws in the Spirit Sea had been weakened to the lowest point. The fact that the cultivators here could not break through to the Yuanying realm was the best example. In addition, when the two devils came, they had a restriction that sealed their demonic aura, so they did not trigger the 9 heavens primordial lightning when they entered the Spirit Sea. The remaining 4 spiritual islands in the Spirit Sea had been wiped out by the two devils effortlessly. Only a small number of cultivators used some secret techniques or secret treasures to temporarily escape by teleportation. However, no matter where they escaped to, the two devils would catch up in a short while. The upper echelons of the 4 spirit islands activated an ancient spiritual array to escape. At the same time, they chose a secluded star island to gather and fight the devils together. The local cultivators of the Blackwood Star did not know what the Nether Devils were. They did not even know what the Hades were. They only knew bits and pieces of legends passed down from ancient times, such as the extraterrestrial devils. To them, the Blackwood Star was the entire world. This was the entire spirit realm. Little did they know that the outside world was vast and boundless. Therefore, the two devils were extraterrestrial devils to them, terrifying existences that fell into the spirit realm from another mysterious space. The cultivators guarding the 4 spirit islands were the strongest group of cultivators of this generation of Spirit Sea cultivators. They were the last hope of the Spirit Sea. Although the extraterrestrial devils were powerful, the hundreds of thousands of cultivators who were still alive in the Spirit Sea felt that if the cultivators guarding the 4 spirit islands gathered together, they would definitely have a way to deal with the extraterrestrial devils. However, the extraterrestrial devils' power was beyond their imagination. In just half a day, the spirit islands of various sizes in the Spirit Sea were completely destroyed by the extraterrestrial devils. 90% of the 800,000 Spirit Sea cultivators and 10 million Spirit Sea mortals were killed. More accurately, they were all eaten. The Star Island became the last hope. However, not long after the cultivators guarding the 4 spirit islands gathered, the extraterrestrial devils chased after them. Fortunately, the Star Island was not an island. It was a super archipelago that was densely packed in the sea. There were more than 100,000 islands of various sizes. Looking down from the sky, they looked like the stars in the sky, hence the name Star Archipelago. Star Island was a very special island among the islands of the star cluster. It could move. The Star Island was a man-made island built by the previous generations of guardian cultivators by gathering all the power of the Spirit Sea at that time. It was reinforced with many spirit arrays and spirit machines that were similar to spirit treasures left behind from the ancient era. For example, 4 spirit machine engines the size of houses. The cultivators of the Spirit Sea realm did not know that this was a spirit jet engine. They all thought that it was some kind of large-scale magic treasure. These 4 spiritual spark engines were connected to a spiritual array. By placing spirit stones in this spiritual array, the spiritual spark engines could be activated. On the side, there was another control spiritual array that could control the direction of the Star Island. Not only that, there was also a spirit railgun in the center of the island, but there were only 2 spirit railgun shells. Star Island was the Noah's Ark that the previous generations of Spirit Sea cultivators had decided to build after sensing that the endless mountain range's seal was getting weaker and weaker, and the Spirit Sea's spirit chi was getting thinner and thinner. The entire Star Islands were a cover for the Star Islands. Furthermore, the cultivators had also used the complex terrain of the Star Islands to set up a super psychedelic spirit array. However, the super psychedelic spiritual array was useless in front of the extraterrestrial demons. Before the cultivators could activate the Star Islands, Emojitian and Zhou Luoyin had already appeared in the sky above the Star Islands. This group of ants is really interesting. They just found a fig leaf and thought that they could hide from the world. The cultivators here are ignorant and laughable. Compared to the human cultivators outside, they are simply a group of primitive people. Zhou Luoyin looked at the Star Islands below with a mocking expression. Emojitian did not say a word. He raised his hand and threw out a black ball of light. However, he did not aim it at the Star Islands. An island with an area of more than 10 square kilometers beside the Star Islands was instantly destroyed. The explosion caused a tsunami that was 100 meters tall. If not for the protective spiritual array on the Star Islands, it would have been swallowed by the tsunami. At this moment, the cultivators standing on the Star Islands were in despair. The extraterrestrial demons were too strong. Most of the surviving Spirit Sea cultivators had gathered on the Star Islands. There were tens of thousands of them. The surviving cultivators of the 4 great Spirit Islands were all here. The main protectors of Gani Spirit Island were Fairy Jilly, Granny Yin Huan, and Old Man Xing Chui. The main protectors of Tai Yuan Spirit Island were Exalted Lord Yuan Pu and Fairy Tai Wu. The main protector of Peng Spirit Island was Enlightened Master Huan Xing. The main protectors of Ji Xing Spirit Island were Ji Xing Zi and Ji Yang Zi. They were the strongest cultivators in the Spirit Sea. Their cultivations were all in the late Jin Dan stage. Ji Xing Zi, I object to using the Spirit electromagnetic cannon. The amount of spirit stones used to fire the cannon is enough to move the Star Islands 10,000 kilometers away, Exalted Lord Yuan Po objected. Exalted Lord Yuan Po, you're still thinking of escaping at this time? Do you think it's useful to move it 10,000 kilometers away? These 2 extraterrestrial demons can catch up to us in an instant. Instead of wasting spirit stones, we might as well risk it all, Ji Xingzi said with a stern expression. Fellow Taoists, we're facing a powerful enemy. Don't argue. Why don't we fire the cannon and move the Star Islands at the same time? Wouldn't that be better? Enlightened Master Huan Xing interrupted. Enlightened Master Huan Xing, the Star Islands have never been used since they were built. They've been covered in dust for hundreds of years. Don't you think it's a bit too risky to use 2 great techniques at the same time? Old Man Xing Chui said. If this scene was seen by the cultivators in the outside world, they would definitely vomit blood in anger at the calmness of these pedantic cultivators in such a situation. They were about to die and they still had the mood to argue? Lu Mei was the only foreign cultivator present. Her face was as pale as a sheet. Even if the Spirit Sea was full of spirit chi, these pedantic cultivators would not be able to achieve much. Stupid ants, have you seen this person before? Just as the cultivators on guard were arguing, a muffled sound came from the void. The sound waves were like waves, causing everyone on the Star Islands to feel their heads buzzing. The one who spoke was Zhou Luoyin. His voice was like thunder, but he did not use any technique. Otherwise, the cultivators on the Star Islands would have been shattered instantly. A 10-feet-tall shadow appeared in the void. It was the image of Li Daochong. Zhou Luoyin and Mo Jitian started a massacre as soon as they arrived in the Spirit Sea. They destroyed the Spirit Islands and devoured the souls of the cultivators. In just half a day they swept through the entire Spirit Sea. But strangely, the 2 devils devoured hundreds of thousands of souls, but there was pitifully little information about Li Daochong. Only a few dozen cultivators had memories of Li Daochong. He had been to Gani Spirit Island. But all the information stopped there. After that, there was no clue as to where Li Daochong went. The only valuable clue was that Li Daochong killed an envoy from the Hades who accidentally entered the Blackwood Star. The 2 devils' demonic thoughts did not sense Li Daochong's aura either. It was as if this person had disappeared from the Blackwood Star. Zhou Luoyin had just used the great dark art to search the entire Spirit Sea. But still, he could not find any trace of Li Daochong. There were not many cultivators left in the Spirit Sea. The island below was the last cultivator gathering place. Facing the last group of ants, Zhou Luoyin and Mo Jitian were not in a hurry to make a move. If they still could not find any clues after devouring the souls, it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. Unless they destroyed the Blackwood Star. But even if they destroyed the Blackwood Star and attacked indiscriminately, they might not be able to kill Li Daochong. Moreover, the 2 devils were sent here not only to hunt Li Daochong, but also to find out why this planet could exist under the Hades's nose for more than 2,000 years without being discovered. Compared to hunting Li Daochong, finding out the reason was even more important. Although Li Daochong was already on the Hades blacklist, his current ranking had just entered the top 100 at 97th. Although he was already a key target, compared to the top 20 human cultivators who could threaten the Hades, he was not that big of a threat. In terms of strength, Li Daochong was not even in the top 100. The reason why this guy was recently promoted to 97th was not because Li Daochong was too strong. It was because this guy had destroyed the Hades's layout several times, causing the Hades to postpone the process of launching another general attack on the spiritual world of the human land. The fiendish python was not so important in the Netherworld tribe. The two devils came to hunt Li Daochong, not to avenge the fiendish python. He was not so important. Hunting Li Daochong was more for the Hades face. If a devil general was killed, if the news spread, the deterrence that the Hades had accumulated over the years to the human tribe would be greatly weakened. But compared with the secret of the Blackwood Star, it was not so urgent to save face. Therefore, it was impossible to destroy the Blackwood Star for the purpose of hunting Li Daochong before figuring out the secret of this cultivation planet. So when Zhou Luoyin and Mo Jitian faced the last group of cultivators of the Spirit Sea Realm on Star Island, they did not immediately attack. Mobile version update website, M. Chapter 695. When Li Daochong's giant image appeared in the sky, most of the cultivators on the island were at a loss. They had never seen Li Daochong before, so how could they possibly know who that image was? Only a small number of cultivators who had survived on Gainei Island recognized Li Daochong. That day, when Li Daochong killed the Hades's envoy on Gainei Island, at least several hundred cultivators had seen it. Most of these cultivators had been killed by the two devils, and no more than 15 had survived. Zhou Luoyin had learned that Li Daochong had appeared on Gainei Island by devouring the cultivators on the island. Lu Mei couldn't connect Li Daochong to the two nether demons in the sky. How had Li Daochong provoked such terrifying existences? How was this any different from courting death? Ever since Lu Mei had met Li Daochong, his strength had truly exceeded her imagination. To Lu Mei, it was already inconceivable. But no matter how strong Li Daochong was, there was no way he could be a match for those two nether demons in the sky. Lu Mei's cultivation wasn't very high, and she wasn't even considered a big shot on Blue Bay Star, but she had received an orthodox cultivation education. She couldn't be more familiar with the classification of nether demons. She even wore a holy light wristwatch commonly used by the Shenghua Federation. This wristwatch had been issued to her when she entered Profound Firmament University. After all, Profound Firmament University was the #1 school on Blue Bay Star, and it was also a private school, so it had plenty of money. The Holy Light wristwatch was one of the best in its category, and it was one of the best in terms of sensitivity and performance. Its most powerful function was that it could roughly measure the level of most nether demons, and its accuracy could even compare to several high-end wristwatches produced by the three great cultivation empires. When the two devils appeared, Lu Mei's wristwatch displayed the words Demon King, and sent out a red alert, telling her to flee immediately. When she saw the Demon King level, Lu Mei's heart sank into complete despair. Not even in her wildest dreams did she think that she would be able to see a Devil King level nether devil one day. Although there were more and more rumors about Hades attacking the human realm spirit realm in recent years, in Lu Mei's opinion, there was no way a minor figure like her could have anything to do with a Devil King level nether demon. Even if Hades were to attack the human realm again, she would not encounter such an existence. The reason was very simple. She wasn't F*King qualified enough. But now that she had encountered them, even though she knew that running away was useless, her survival instincts still made her follow Fairy Jilly and the others to Star Island. What was even more unexpected to her was that these two devilish lords, who were comparable to body integration cultivators and even tribulation transcendence cultivators, had come here for Li Daochong. What did this guy do to make Hades send out two Demon King level nether demons to kill him? When Fairy Jilly and the others saw Li Daochong's image, they also felt suffocated. But their thoughts were slightly different from Lu Mei's. Grandma, could it be that immortal Li lured the two devils here? Fairy Julie's heart was filled with mixed feelings. She originally thought that Li Daochong would become the savior of the spirit realm. With his strength, whether it was the endless mountain range, the great wilderness, or the nether ghosts in the endless abyss, none of them were a match for him. That day, when the extraterrestrial demon came to Jian'ai Spirit Island, Jili thought that Li Daochong would not be able to do anything. But in the end, he easily killed the legendary extraterrestrial demon. Fairy Jili had already thought that Li Daochong was an extraterrestrial immortal. But she didn't expect that in just a few days, 2 more extraterrestrial demons would come. And these 2 extraterrestrial demons were much more powerful than the previous one. In just half a day, they had caused the entire spirit sea to be in a terrible situation. As long as they wanted to, they could destroy the entire spirit realm with a wave of their hand. Granny Yin Huan sighed and said, "Jili, I told you a few days ago that there was a warning on the Immortals' Jade Tablet. When the extraterrestrial race descends, they can only avoid the Jade God. The Jade Tablet points the way to the Nether Path." Jili's body shook. Of course, she remembered what Granny Yin Huan had said not long ago. "Granny, are you saying that Li Daochong is also an extraterrestrial race?" Fairy Jili's expression changed. "Is that not the case? That brat and Lu Mei are not cultivators of the spirit realm," Granny Yin Huan said with certainty. Just as the two of them were talking, another thunderous sound came from the void. "No one has seen it?" Mo Jitian frowned and continued, "If no one has seen it, then these ants can all die." The tens of thousands of cultivators on the Star Island covered their ears and showed a pained expression. Some of the weaker cultivators suffered internal injuries on the spot. Just as Mo Jitian finished speaking and was about to attack, someone suddenly shouted in fear. "I've seen it." The one who shouted was a cultivator guarding the spirit island of Gainai. He was standing not far from Fairy Jili and Granny Yin Huan. This person had been imprisoned in the Ghost Palace with Fairy Jili and the others. From Li Daochong saving Xue Nu and frightening the Ghost Lord to killing the extraterrestrial demon on the spirit island of Gainai, he had experienced it all. Mo Jitian narrowed his eyes and lowered his raised hand. Then, he reached out and grabbed. The cultivator rose from the Star Island and was attracted by a powerful suction force. He flew up and instantly arrived in front of Mo Jitian. "Where is he?" Mo Jitian asked coldly. The cultivator panicked and shook his head. "I don't know." "Don't know? What nonsense are you spouting?" Killing intent flashed in Mo Jitian's eyes. He opened his mouth and swallowed the cultivator. This shocking scene caused the cultivators on the Star Island to turn pale with fright. Previously, the twin devils only used their devil will to devour a human soul. They did not swallow a human alive. Directly swallowing a human along with his soul was far more terrifying than devil will devouring a human's soul. The visual impact was extremely frightening. That was a living person and a cultivator who had cultivated to the early Jin Dan stage. Just like that, he was swallowed into his stomach. The cultivator did not even have time to react before his body was destroyed. At the moment of his death, his intestines turned green with regret. He originally wanted to expose Li Daochong, hoping to protect himself and the surviving spirit sea cultivators on the Star Island, who knew that the extraterrestrial demon would not play by the rules. It only casually asked a question and was not satisfied with the answer, so it directly swallowed him. Mo Jitian naturally swallowed that cultivator to search his soul. A mere Jin Dan cultivator was not even enough to fill the gaps between his teeth. He was simply not his cup of tea. Along the way, the twin devils had devoured countless souls. Their goal was to obtain valuable information, not to fill their stomach. Even if these low-level cultivators were to eat a few 100 million, it would not be of any use. It was similar to how Li Daochong would not obtain too much spirit qi from killing low-level dark ghosts after his cultivation had increased. After Mo Jitian searched his soul, he still found nothing. This cultivator's memory was the same as the memories of the previous cultivators. He only saw Li Daochong killing the Hades emissary, and then Li Daochong and the other two left Ganei's spirit island together. As for where they went, there was no clue at all. Zhou Luoyin knew from Mo Jitian's expression that they did not find Li Daochong's whereabouts, so he spoke again. "Ants, I have no interest in killing you. As long as anyone tells me where this person is, we will leave immediately." The Star Island was silent. "Jiuli, tell them," Granny Yin Huan transmitted her voice. On Ganei Spirit Island, only Fairy Jiuli and Granny Yin Huan knew that Li Daochong had gone to Sky Thunder Island. Fairy Jiuli's expression was uncertain, and she was struggling in her heart. It was not that she was so noble that she did not want to betray Li Daochong. After all, she did not have any friendship with Li Daochong, and the latter's background was still unknown. Therefore, she did not feel guilty about betraying Li Daochong. Moreover, this person was the main culprit that attracted the extraterrestrial demons. Her spirit sea was almost destroyed because of him. Fairy Jiuli's inner struggle was because she did not know whether she should believe the extraterrestrial demons. If she did not say anything, she might not be able to escape this calamity, but she could at least stall for time. The spirit railgun and the 4 spirit machines were charging. When the 2 extraterrestrial demons appeared, they did not immediately destroy the Star Island. This showed that they had some misgivings. Otherwise, destroying the Star Island would be a matter of minutes. Why would they wait until now? If she said anything, the extraterrestrial demons would turn hostile, and she would have no bargaining chips left. She could only wait for death. "Jiuli, what are you waiting for? Tell them. We have no choice. If you don't say anything, then let me say it." Granny Yin Huan anxiously transmitted her voice. "Granny, are you sure that those 2 cold-blooded extraterrestrial demons will let us go if we say anything?" Fairy Jiuli replied. "Jiuli, in the extraterrestrial demon's eyes, we are just a bunch of ants that drag out an ignoble existence. Is there a need to lie to us? Would you lie to an ant beneath your feet?" Granny Yin Huan naturally thought of what Fairy Jiuli thought of as well. However, she clearly saw the situation more clearly than Fairy Jiuli. "Does no one know? If that is the case, then there is no value in keeping you alive." Zhou Luoyin did not have much patience to wait. "I know where he went." Granny Yin Huan saw that Jiuli was still not speaking, so she directly said, "Oh? Where did he go?" Zhou Luoyin's eyes instantly locked onto Granny Yin Huan. With a simple gaze, she felt as if her old bones were about to fall apart. Sky Thunder Island. Granny Yin Huan threw out a map of the Spirit Sea. The old woman's reply was simple and swift. She was also afraid that the 2 extraterrestrial demons would also drag her into the void. Zhou Luoyin took the map and casually glanced at it before looking at Granny Yin Huan again. He continued, "This king trusts you, so I won't search your soul. However, this king has already marked all of you. No matter where you hide, I can easily find you. Now, this king will head to Sky Lightning Island. If I find this person, this king will not return. If I can't find him, all of you will perish." His voice echoed in the void. The 2 extraterrestrial demons had already disappeared. All the cultivators on the Star Island instantly felt the terrifying pressure on them disappear. Many of them collapsed to the ground as if they had just experienced a life-and-death battle. Their entire bodies were exhausted. Below the Star Island, Li Daochong was standing at the edge of the Ghost Palace's entrance, watching everything that happened outside. The Ghost Palace was created by an immortal. As long as he stayed inside, the 2 extraterrestrial demons would not be able to sense Li Daochong's existence. "Li Daoyu, how did you provoke the Hades? Why did they send 2 Devil King-level nether demons to kill you?" Hu Ling stared at Li Daochong, flabbergasted. Xie Baoshan had been in a petrified state since just now. As a ghost cultivator, just a glance from the two extraterrestrial demons was enough to make him feel terrified. Li Daochong shrugged and replied, "I stole the wife of the 9 Serenities country's prince." Hu Ling Yao Ling and Xie Baoshan's jaws dropped to the ground. Their eyes bulged as they stared at Li Daochong. Mobile version update website, M. Chapter 696. Li Daochong's answer was naturally somewhat joking, but he did not want to waste his breath on this issue. How did he offend the Hades? There were a lot of things that happened. After Li Daochong confirmed that the 2 devils were far away from the Star Island, he flew out of the Ghost Palace's entrance. Time was of the essence, and Li Daochong could not afford to waste even a second. With the speed of the 2 devils, the Blackwood planet was not that big anymore. Li Daochong estimated that the 2 devils would not take more than 10 minutes to go back and forth. As long as they did not find Li Daochong on Sky Thunder Island, the 2 devils would immediately return and start a massacre. Li Daochong! Lu Mei exclaimed when she saw Li Daochong. After the 2 devils left, the cultivators on the Star Island immediately got busy. Some healed, some activated the spirit arrays, and some chose to escape. Lu Mei's shout successfully made Fairy Jiuli turn around. When she saw Li Daochong, Fairy Jiuli's heart jumped to her throat. Without waiting for Fairy Jiuli to speak, Li Daochong said in an unquestionable tone, "Give up this island and gather everyone to follow me." Granny Yin Huan coldly snorted. "Outsider, you want us to follow you? You were the one who attracted the otherworldly demons. If we follow you, won't we be killed by the otherworldly demons at any time?" The other cultivators looked over and saw that Li Daochong was the person the 2 otherworldly demons were looking for. The cultivators all had different expressions. Some were curious, some were angry, some were at a loss, and some even had murderous intent. They wondered if they should kill this kid and take him to the otherworldly demons to claim credit. Li Daochong glanced at Granny Yin Huan and gently swung his hand. Bang! An invisible force hit Granny's silver ring, and this veteran Golden Core cultivator of the Spirit Sea was sent flying. Li Daochong did not use much strength, but it was enough to pose a fatal threat to Granny Yin Huan. Granny Yin Huan rolled on the ground more than 10 times before stopping. "Old thing, I'm not here to negotiate with you. If you're willing, you can leave. If you're not willing, you can stay. There's no point in talking any more nonsense. If anyone dares to spout any more nonsense, I don't mind sending them on their way," Li Daochong said coldly. As he spoke, the spirit chi on Li Daochong's body surged like a tsunami. When it reached the Yuanying stage, all the cultivators on the Star Island were dumbfounded. Most of the cultivators had never seen Li Daochong before. They did not know who Li Daochong was. However, since then, the number of Yuanying cultivators had not increased, and there were not even 500 cultivators who had not yet arrived. After 500 years, there were no more new nascent soul cultivators. The cultivators who were able to enter the nascent soul stage were all old men. Reaching the Yuanying stage at such a young age was unimaginable in the eyes of Spirit Sea cultivators. However, Li Daochong's spirit chi did not stop at the Yuanying stage. Li Daochong knew that at this juncture, talking too much would only be a waste of time. Powerful strength was more persuasive than any words. After reaching the middle Yuanying stage, most of the cultivators on the Star Island could no longer sense the depth. The only evidence that they could still sense that Li Daochong's cultivation was still rising was the invisible pressure that was constantly increasing. High-level cultivators were naturally intimidating to low-level cultivators. Even if they did not deliberately release their pressure, the latter would still feel the enormous pressure. The greater the difference in cultivation, the greater the invisible pressure. In serious cases, it could even crush one's spirit foundation. No, impossible. Granny Yin Huan, who was lying on the ground, covered her chest and spat out blood, murmured in disbelief. As a veteran Jean Dan cultivator, Granny Yin Huan's perception was clearly much stronger than other cultivators. Granny Yin Huan had seen the last glory of Spirit Sea cultivators. A few hundred years ago there were still many Yuanying cultivators. Therefore, Granny Yin Huan was very familiar with the aura of Yuanying cultivators. She had once felt the aura of a peak Yuanying cultivator. Li Daochong's aura was infinitely close to the peak of Yuanying. Soon, it was comparable to the aura Granny Yin Huan sensed back then. Before Granny Yin Huan could recover from her shock, Li Daochong's aura had already surpassed the limit of her understanding. Seeing Granny Yin Huan's serious injuries, Fairy Julie grabbed her wrist and asked, "Granny, are you okay?" Granny Yin Huan did not seem to have heard it. She looked at Li Daochong in disbelief with her turbid eyes and suddenly cried out, "Soul formation cultivator." Fairy Julie's delicate body shook. Soul formation? In just a few seconds, Li Daochong completely released his spiritual aura. Before this, he had already sealed the Star Island, so the spiritual aura would not leak out. Otherwise, even if the two devils were already 10,000 li away, it was very likely that they would sense it. The Spirit Sea cultivators on the Star Island had just endured the terrifying death aura of the two devils. Now, they were enveloped by the Spirit Chi pressure. The cultivators were in unspeakable pain. However, the death aura was fear, while the Spirit Chi was submission. They were two completely different feelings. Li Daochong took a deep breath and said, "If you don't want to die, then follow me." With that, Li Daochong flew up. He did not give any explanation, nor did he have time to explain. Lu Mei did not even think and immediately followed. However, other than her, the other cultivators did not move. Clearly, they were only afraid of Li Daochong, but they did not believe him. At this moment, a ray of light flashed from the bottom of the sea. Hu Ling appeared in the void. "Exalted immortal Hu," Fairy Julie said excitedly when she saw Hu Ling. Compared to Li Daochong, Hu Ling-er's reputation in the Spirit Sea was much higher. This was because she had a pure demon bloodline. Almost all the cultivators guarding the 4 Spirit Islands knew her. In fact, the area where the Blackwood Star was located was the demon race's spirit realm universe. At the same time, the Blackwood Star was also a high-level cultivation planet. However, the demon race was not the only race here. The human race was also very large at that time. The population was several times more than the demon race. After the Blackwood Star was sealed, this place was completely isolated from the outside world. For more than 2,000 years, the human race and the demon race had gathered together because of a common enemy. Now, there were almost no pure humans or demons on the Blackwood Star. They were all mixed-blood races of humans and demons intermarried. However, the seemingly weak human race had the upper hand in terms of bloodline. The demon race's bloodline was obviously much weaker. The mixed-blood race's form had almost completely inherited the human race's characteristic. The demon race's characteristics were constantly diluted. However, because this was originally a demon race's territory and the demon race's strength was very strong, the mixed-blood races were more inclined to think that the demon race was the orthodox race. Hu Ling-er's pure demon bloodline made her the hope of all the cultivators here after coming to the Spirit Sea. They all thought that she was the descendant of the demon god. "There's no time to explain. Follow me." Hu Ling-er's somewhat seductive voice echoed throughout the entire Star Island. In an instant, all the cultivators on the Star Island flew up. Hu Ling-er inadvertently glanced at Li Daochong, as if she was asking for credit. Her pair of beautiful eyes were very alluring, and even a casual movement seemed to be able to steal one's soul, full of provocation and temptation. Li Daochong curled his lips and took Lu Mei into the Spirit Sea and into the Ghost Palace. "Huh? Why is the entrance to the Ghost Palace under the Star Island?" Lu Mei, who had entered the Ghost Palace once, was puzzled. The Ghost Palace is just a name. It's actually a very high-level space, Li Daochong casually replied. Soon, more than half of the 60,000 cultivators on the Star Island followed Hu Ling into the Ghost Palace. However, there were still thousands of cultivators on the Star Island who didn't believe in heresy and were unwilling to leave the Star Island. They chose to stay. This included the Peng Ling Island's guardian, Taoist Huan Xing, and the two guardians of the Polar Star Spirit Island, Ji Xingzi and Ji Yangzi. A forcibly picked melon was not sweet. Moreover, there was no time to explain, so he could only let them be. Li Daochong's purpose here was to save Fairy Jili and the other guardians and ask about the other jade token. He wasn't here to be the savior of the Spirit Sea. Seeing that no one else was coming, Li Daochong was about to go to the Ghost Palace and immediately change the entrance. Just as Li Daochong was about to leave, a flying sword shot over. Clang! Li Daochong didn't dodge. The flying sword shot at his neck and made a crisp sound of metal colliding. With a cracking sound, the flying sword broke into several pieces. Li Daochong frowned. He naturally knew who attacked him. Alien, it's all your fault. If you hadn't lured the extraterrestrial demons to the spirit realm, Master and wouldn't have died. The Spirit Sea wouldn't have been plunged into misery and suffering. I'll kill you, a tall young man with bloodshot eyes roared and rushed towards Li Daochong. Yes, it's all because of this alien. He's the murderer who killed our family and friends. Chapter 697. The tall youth's sudden attack, coupled with the others' agreement, caused the Spirit Sea cultivators who had just entered the Ghost Manor to vent their grief on Li Daochong. The tall young man rushed towards Li Daochong as if he had gone mad and hugged him. Outsider, you're the main culprit. I'll take you down with me to avenge Master and The tall youth roared. How could Li Daochong not know the thoughts of a mere Foundation establishment cultivator? The tall youth was able to hug Li Daochong because he didn't dodge. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to touch a hair on Li Daochong's head even if he lived for 800 years. Li Daochong was indeed involved in the Spirit Sea being massacred by the two devils, and the living beings in the Spirit Sea were almost wiped out. However, Li Daochong's arrival had only sped up the process. It wasn't right to say that he was the main culprit, because even if Li Daochong hadn't come to Black Tree Star, it wouldn't have been long before this place was slaughtered by the Hades of Hades. Li Daochong had indeed lured the twin demons here, but the emissary of Hades coming to Black Tree Star had nothing to do with Li Daochong. The emissary of Hades had entered Black Tree Star only because the seal left behind by the immortal had weakened, allowing him to enter by mistake. If not for Li Daochong, the emissary of Hades alone would have been enough to flatten the Spirit Sea. Of course, he wouldn't have been able to destroy it as easily as the twin demons. However, the emissary of Hades would definitely have reported the existence of Black Tree Star to the Hades. Soon, a large number of Hades ghosts and devils would come and devour the entire planet. Even if the emissary of Hades hadn't entered Black Tree Star by mistake, as the seal weakened, he would have been discovered sooner or later. Li Daochong had indeed lured the twin demons here and sped up the process, but because of Li Daochong, it was possible that all the living beings on Black Tree Star wouldn't be wiped out. It could also preserve some of the most important secrets of Black Tree Star. Therefore, it was completely unreasonable to say that Li Daochong was the culprit. It was only because these Spirit Sea realm cultivators were too ignorant. Li Daochong was wrongly accused, but he didn't explain and let the tall young man hug him. The tall youth closed his eyes and was about to self-destruct. When the other Spirit Sea realm cultivators saw that the tall young man was about to self-destruct, they all dodged and hid far away, afraid that they would be affected. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. There was no movement. What's going on? The tall young man opened his eyes in a daze. He couldn't control the Foundation establishment placenta in his body. Li Daochong didn't make any move, but with a bang, the tall youth was sent flying. If you want to take revenge on me, then cultivate properly. Do you think blowing yourself up will work? Li Daochong said coldly. The anger in the tall young man's heart was instantly drowned by a wave of powerlessness. He floated in the air like a puppet with a blank expression. Swoosh! As soon as Li Daochong's voice fell, more than 10 magic treasures of various kinds came whistling from all directions. Li Daochong's eyes flashed. Just the aura emitted from his body stopped more than 10 magic treasures that were incomparably powerful in the eyes of Spirit Sea Realm cultivators. Flying swords and flying knives floated less than 10 meters away from Li Daochong. No matter how the cultivators controlling these magic treasures urged them, they didn't move at all. Li Daochong stretched out his hand, and the dozen or so cultivators hidden in the crowd who were attacking were pulled out. Li Daochong condensed his chi and moved. Ka, bang! The magic treasures let out a terrifying shattering sound and then exploded into dust. You were quite obedient when facing the 2 demons, but now you're acting wildly in front of Lili? It seems that I have to show my power. Li Daochong's body was filled with killing intent. Fairy Jiuli hurriedly said, Immortally, calm down. Li Daoyu, you can't. Seeing this, Hu Ling also flew up to stop him. Immortally, spare them, the demon spirit also said. Li Daochong looked at the 3 expressionlessly and said, What's the use of keeping this group of foolish cultivators? Fairy Jiuli was afraid that Li Daochong would kill everyone in a fit of anger, so she hurriedly said, Everyone, the immortals of the spirit realm have long predicted that the extraterrestrial demons will descend. It was not a mortal Li who attracted them. Jiuli can explain the reason. The tens of thousands of cultivators were puzzled. You should thank Li Daoyu. Without him, the Blackwood star would have turned into a dead star, Hu Ling quickly said. The cultivators looked at each other. Li Daochong was too lazy to talk nonsense with these frogs at the bottom of the well. He only said, Don't do things more than 3 times. If anyone dares to cause trouble for no reason, don't blame Li for being ruthless. With that, Li Daochong flew away without looking back. Xie Baoshan stayed behind to deal with the aftermath, and led the tens of thousands of cultivators to the floating island outside the Ghost Palace. This was the only place to stay in the Ghost Palace, but it was extremely vast, spanning hundreds of thousands of square kilometers. Not to mention tens of thousands of cultivators, even millions of them could be accommodated. The Spirit Sea cultivators naturally had many questions in their hearts, and many of them were even suspicious. In the eyes of the Spirit Sea cultivators, the Ghost Palace had always been a terrifying place where nether ghosts gathered. Countless cultivators had died at the hands of the Ghost Palace. For thousands of years, the Spirit Sea cultivators had always regarded the Ghost Palace as one of their biggest enemies. But now, they had actually run to the Ghost Palace to seek refuge. If not for Immortal Hu's guidance, and the fact that they didn't know that they were entering the Ghost Palace, they definitely wouldn't have come here. Hu Ling saw the doubts in the cultivators' hearts, so she gathered everyone on the floating island and told them some things about the Blackwood Star. Of course, the secrets of the demon vein and the endless abyss were automatically filtered out. We're not in the spirit realm? A cultivator asked in disbelief. Spirit realm? A mere cultivation planet calling itself the spirit realm is a huge joke in the outside world, Hu Ling said bluntly. The thousands of cultivators left on the Star Island weren't idle. All of them moved out, activating all the spirit arrays and spirit vigils on the Star Island. The spirit railgun was also filled with spirit energy. The 2 guardian cultivators, Ji Xingzi and Ji Yangzi, were elected as the island masters of the Star Island. However, the 2 of them had just become the island masters when the 2 devils who had gone to Sky Thunder Island returned. Stupid ants, you actually dared to deceive this king. The anger in Zhou Luoyin's eyes seemed to burn. Ji Xingzi was shocked and immediately ordered, fire. According to the records, the spirit railgun was enough to blast dozens of Yuanian cultivators to death. Wung. Spirit energy quickly gathered. Boom, a beam of light shot out from the mouth of the cannon. Zhou Luoyin hadn't even made a move, but the ants below actually attacked him. He smirked and licked his lips. Zhou Luoyin took a light breath, puff, and blew it out, just like how an office worker would take a puff of dust off his desk and blow on it. Just like that, the incoming spirit energy cannonballs were blown back. Ji Xingzi looked at this scene with a dumbfounded expression. Before he could react, he was shot through by the reflected spirit railgun. He was directly blasted into nothingness, leaving nothing behind. Boom! The spirit railgun that pierced through Ji Xingzi hit the ground, creating a 100-meter-wide crater. A small mushroom cloud rose up. The power of the spiritual railgun was so powerful that the Devil Dweller destroyed it with a single breath. The hearts of the cultivators on the Star Island fell to the bottom. The power of the extraterritorial devil had far exceeded the limits of their imagination. This was clearly the descent of a devil god. Ji Yangzi saw his senior brother Ji Xingzi being instantly pierced through by the spirit railgun and roared in grief, "What are you waiting for? Quickly activate the transfer spirit array." Just as Ji Yangzi roared, Zhou Luoyin appeared in front of him. He opened his mouth and swallowed him. Mo Jitian naturally didn't stay idle. Thousands of cultivators were all controlled by the devil intent, unable to move. Mo Jitian's devil intent moved slightly, and thousands of cultivators' souls flew out of their bodies. In a few breaths' time, they were all devoured. Only thousands of soulless bodies were left on the Star Island. After the two devils devoured them, they immediately received news that Li Daochong had appeared not long after they left. Memories of 10 minutes ago flashed across these thousands of cultivators' mind. Li Daochong appeared, Hu Ling appeared, leading tens of thousands of cultivators to enter the Star Island. Ha ha ha, interesting, really interesting. Zhou Luoyin suddenly laughed. Mo Jitian, we were played by that brat. That brat was right under our noses. But not only did we not discover him, we were also played by the ants. Swoosh, swoosh, 2 streaks of light suddenly shot past the two devils. Zhou Luoyin and Mo Jitian reacted quickly. They tried to catch the 2 rays of light, but unexpectedly they caught nothing. The 2 rays of light were as fast as lightning. Eh! Zhou Luoyin exclaimed, revealing a suspicious expression. Mo Jitian also revealed a strange expression. After devouring so many human souls, this underworld demon naturally knew the situation of Blackwood Star like the back of his hand. This planet, which had been sealed for more than 2,000 years, had now degenerated into an undeveloped primitive planet. Everything was in a backward state. On a mere Stone Age cultivation planet, there was actually a magic treasure whose speed even the two devils couldn't catch. Both Zhou Luoyin and Mo Jitian were secretly shocked. At the same time, Li Daochong was already controlling the entrance of the Ghost Palace. However, he didn't succeed this time. Li Daochong felt a chill run down his spine. He thought that the spiritual array controlling the Ghost Palace's movement had malfunctioned. Just as Li Daochong was about to investigate the problem, the spiritual array suddenly started to operate on its own. Li Daochong frowned. He didn't know what was going on. 2 rays of light directly pierced through space and shot into the Ghost Palace. They were 2 rings. Li Daochong recognized the origin of the 2 rings at a glance. He had seen Fairy Jiuli wearing a similar ring before. Fairy Jiuli, who was counseling the spiritual sea cultivators outside the Ghost Palace, suddenly felt a sharp pain on her finger. The guardian ring on her thumb's temperature rapidly rose. Fairy Jiuli was about to take off the guardian ring when she saw the ring turn into a ray of light and fly out. The fastest mobile version of the website. Chapter 698. At the same time, Great Yuan Spirit Island's High Lord Yuan Po's ring also showed the same thing as Fairy Jiuli. High Lord Yuan Po did not put the ring on his finger but placed it in his storage pouch. Without the summoning of the owner, any item placed in the storage pouch could not be taken out. At this moment, the guardian ring in Yuan Po's storage pouch flew out of the storage pouch without any restrictions. High Lord Yuan Po and Fairy Jiuli looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. The secret of the guardian ring was related to the life and death of the spirit sea. Something big must have happened for the two rings to show such a phenomenon. The two of them did not hesitate. They immediately followed the ring and flew towards the ghost palace. Extreme Yangzi and Taoist Master Huan Xing, who were devoured by the two devils, also had a guardian ring. The cultivators guarding the four great spiritual islands each had one. The four guardian rings were the keys to opening the legendary Jade Divine Island. However, no one knew where the Jade Divine Island was. After so many years, many cultivators even doubted the existence of the Jade Divine Island. The so-called four guardian rings were just a memento left by the first-generation Spirit Sea cultivators for the later generations. In reality, the Jade Divine Island did not exist. Otherwise, how could no one have seen this island in such a long time? Although the Spirit Sea was big, it was still a prosperous era and there were many cultivators. At that time, there were millions of cultivators scattered throughout the Spirit Sea to explore and find opportunities. However, there were never any rumors about the Jade Divine Island. Over time, the guardian rings were treated as tokens by the four great spiritual islands and not the guardian rings of legends. After being passed down from generation to generation, the guardian rings did not show any abnormalities. They were just like ordinary rings and carried out their only duty as decorations. Fairy Jiuli and High Lord Yuan Po did not take the legend of the guardian rings to heart. However, at this moment, the guardian rings took off by themselves and the two cultivators' hearts jumped. Within the ghost palace, Li Daochong stared at the two rings that suddenly flew over. Two more beams of light shot in from outside. The four guardian rings floated above the ghost palace's spirit formation and released a dazzling light. Fairy Jiuli and High Lord Yuan Po flew into the ghost palace from outside and saw a golden brilliance that was as dazzling as the sun. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The sound of heavy rotation sounded throughout the ghost palace as if the continents were moving. When Zhou Luoyin and Emojitian heard that Li Daochong was below the Star Island, they turned into two black lights and rushed into the Spirit Sea. The waves that erupted were thousands of meters high, directly dispersing the clouds in the void. The twin devils were terrifying. And even though the entrance's entrance was very well Daochong's, however, they were still easily found. Devil King level nether demons could easily tear through space and travel through space. How could a few seals stop them? The original seal at the entrance of the Ghost Manor was left behind by an immortal. However, this seal wasn't very intricate, and Li Daochong had easily found the entrance before. How could he not find the twin devils who were stronger than Li Daochong? Zhou Luoyin joked. He could faintly sense a familiar smell coming from the entrance. It was the smell of Hades. The seawater did not obstruct the twin devils at all. Instead, they sped up. They were like two black lightning bolts that struck the ghost palace's entrance. Two tornadoes appeared below the surface of the sea, causing the surface of the sea to surge with raging waves. The twin devils only moved under the sea, but it caused a disaster in the sea. Seeing that they were about to enter the entrance, Zhou Luoyin revealed a sinister smile. He had always felt that capturing Li Daochong was a game. Zhou Luoyin did not put this new human cultivator in his eyes. As a Devil King nether demon, he was nothing but trash in his eyes. Just when Zhou Luoyin thought that he had entered the spatial entrance, there was a sudden pop. The entrance disappeared in an instant. Sizzle! The twin devils turned into two black lights and shot into the depths of the Spirit Sea. They were still in the Spirit Sea and did not enter any Na universe. Zhou Luoyin stopped abruptly. He looked back with a bewildered expression. There was no spatial entrance in the area just now. There was only seawater. Emojitian did not believe it. He immediately turned around and returned to the entrance area. demonic chi surged out of his body as he thrust his hands into the space. Two demonic claws forcibly tore open a crack in the space. However, even though the space had been torn apart, the aura of the underworld that he had sensed earlier was no longer present on the other side. What Mo-Jitian tore open was just a random spatial node. It was completely different from the spatial entrance they sensed just now. Roar. Seeing that his cooked duck was ruined, Mo-Jitian raised his head and roared. It was a sound that could only be heard in the abyss of hell. It was hollow and hoarse with anger. The impact of this sound wave caused the spirit sea to churn violently. It was as if a giant's hand was stirring the sea. Thousands of kilometers of the sea were turned upside down. Zhou Luoyin was naturally annoyed. However, he did not burn with anger like Mo-Jitian. His eyes were filled with a cold light. His demonic will turned into hundreds of millions of telekinesis threads and extended outwards. The Devil King's demonic will was enough to cover the entire black wood star. However, Zhou Luoyin did not sense any abnormalities. That universe space disappeared as if it had evaporated. As for Li Daochong's aura, it had never appeared in the first place. The twin devils had just found Li Daochong's trail, but they missed it in the blink of an eye. As hunters, the twin devils had never been so defeated. Ever since they entered the Blackwood Star, this game of hide-and-seek had been fruitless. Li Daochong was even more slippery than a loach. Mo-Jitian, could that spatial entrance be the Ghost Palace? Zhou Luoyin asked. The furious Mo-Jitian was suddenly awakened. He glanced at Zhou Luoyin. If that's the case, then it's very likely. However, isn't this ghost palace created by those low-level ghosts? How could it be controlled by a cultivator? Zhou Luoyin stroked his chin. That's the strange part. What happened to this sealed planet in the past? This king is becoming more and more interested. Mo-Jitian, after we arrived here, we focused on tracking Li Daochong. As a result, we neglected many details. With Li Daochong's cultivation, it's impossible for him to escape our pursuit. He must have spied on the secrets of this place and used some mysterious power. Otherwise, this king's demonic will would not have been unable to detect even a trace of his aura. Rather than chasing after Li Daochong like a headless fly, we might as well investigate how this planet was able to remain undiscovered for so many years under the Hades's nose. Mo-Jitian's eyes flashed. He immediately understood Zhou Luoyin's intentions. He looked up at the sea. Let's go and take a look. With that, Mo-Jitian soared into the sky. Zhou Luoyin followed closely behind. Whoosh! Two black lights rushed out of the sea, setting off terrifying waves that soared into the sky. Soon, the two devils arrived at the gelatinous barrier that sealed Blackwood Star. This barrier even hindered the two devils' footstep. However, it was only a hindrance. It was not enough to stop them. What a powerful spiritual will barrier! It can fuse with space and form a spatial will wall. Zhou Luoyin was shocked. A Mahayana cultivator once appeared here. Mo-Jitian revealed a deep fear. Not to mention a Mahayana cultivator, even a tribulation-passing cultivator was enough to make the two devils suffer. A powerful tribulation-passing cultivator could even kill the two devils in an instant. This spatial will wall is the foundation of this place. The cultivator who set up this spatial will wall back then was powerful. It's not something the two of us can fathom. Zhou Luoyin sighed. The two devils worked together and aimed at one spot. Bit by bit, they drilled a hole in the spatial will wall. The two passed through the spatial will wall and arrived at Blackwood Star's sky beyond. Not long ago, Li Daochong's separated soul saw everything that was reflected in the eyes of the two devils. The two devils gasped at the same time. If Li Daochong could see the truth, how could they not? It can't be wrong. It was done by a Mahayana cultivator. Zhou Luoyin said with certainty. However, as he spoke, his face was extremely ugly and his dark red eyes were filled with unconcealable fear. As Demon King level nether devils, The two devils were extremely powerful and could destroy a star field in a matter of minutes. However, in front of a Mahayana cultivator, they were just lambs waiting to be slaughtered. They didn't even have the chance to fight back. When the two devils tried to rush in, the 4 guardian rings automatically returned to the ghost palace and activated the transfer spirit array. In the nick of time, the ghost palace was transferred to a sea more than 100,000 kilometers away. At this time, in addition to Li Daochong, Hu Ling, Xie Baoshan, and Yao Ling, there were 4 other spirit sea cultivators in the ghost palace. They were Fairy Jili, Exalted Lord Essence Soul, Granny Yin Huan, and Fairy Taiwu. The core guardian cultivators of the 4 spirit islands were only Fairy Jili and Exalted Lord Essence Soul from Gani Spirit Island and Taiyuan Spirit Island. The 2 guardians of Ping Spirit Island and Polaris Spirit Island had already been killed by the 2 devils. Granny Yin Huan's old eyes widened in disbelief as she looked at the 4 guardian rings floating above the ghost palace. As the most experienced spirit sea cultivator, Granny Yin Huan would never have thought that the 4 guardian rings left behind by the immortals would open the door to the ghost palace. What happened to the Jade God Island? Granny Yin Huan was dumbfounded as she told Fairy Jili about the Jade Token to Li Daochong and the others. The Jade Token is on the Jade God Island and the guardian rings are the key to opening the seal on the Jade God Island? Li Daochong also felt strange after hearing Granny Yin Huan's explanation. Since it's the key to opening the seal on the Jade God Island, why would the guardian rings fly into the ghost palace of the ghost palace? This doesn't make sense at all. Fairy Jili suddenly thought of something and looked at Granny Yin Huan. Granny, the warning left behind by the immortals. Granny Yin Huan's old face stiffened and she said the warning again. When the foreign races descend, they can only avoid the Jade God. The Jade Token points the way to the nether path. Chapter 699. Li Daochong repeated softly as he pondered. When the alien race descends, they can only avoid the Jade God. The Jade Tablet leads the way to the netherworld. Hu Ling Er's beautiful eyes flickered slightly. The alien race encompassed a wide range of people. To the natives here, she and Li Daochong were both alien races. If this sentence was really left behind by an immortal, then we should have arrived at the Jade God Island by now. Li Daochong seemed to have thought of something. After speaking, Li Daochong had already flown out, and the others followed closely behind. Li Daochong was the first to fly out of the ghost palace. Immediately, a strange island came into view. The entire island was a mountain peak. Although it wasn't very wide, its height was extremely shocking. The mountain peak towered into the clouds, and the peak couldn't be seen. Jade God Island? Li Daochong wasn't sure when he saw the island, but the spirit chi here was denser than that of a second-class cultivation planet outside. Li Daochong didn't wait for the others to come out and flew toward the mountain peak. His strong curiosity made him eager to solve the mystery. This mountain peak was bigger than he imagined. The closer he got to the mountain peak, the denser the spirit chi. When Li Daochong arrived at the foot of the mountain, the spirit chi in the surroundings was even denser. If he cultivated here, it would be 3 to 4 times faster than outside. However, this Jade God Island was so conspicuous and the spirit chi was so dense. How could it not be discovered by spirit sea cultivators after so many years? Li Daochong couldn't figure it out, so he sped up and flew toward the peak of the mountain. After a few minutes, Li Daochong arrived at the mountainside and felt a wave of spirit chi. He swooped down and circled around the mountainside. After circling around, he didn't find anything special, but Li Daochong's divine will could clearly detect the wave of spirit chi. Li Daochong felt that it was strange, so he landed. The entire mountain peak was very steep, with jagged rocks of strange shapes and precipitous cliffs. Falling down was a bottomless abyss. Even Li Daochong was unable to estimate the height of this mountain. Suddenly, a curved stone entered Li Daochong's line of sight. Flying up, Li Daochong knocked on the stone. Li Daochong tried to push the stone, but it didn't budge. Li Daochong was now in the divinity transformation stage, and the power of a casual push was extremely shocking. Yet, he was unable to move the curved stone that seemed to be suspended in the air. Li Daochong added more strength, but it still didn't budge. At this time, Hu Ling, and the others had caught up. Seeing Li Daochong pushing a large rock, they felt it was strange. Li Daoyu, is there something strange about this stone? Hu Ling couldn't help but ask. Li Daochong did not answer. He stretched out his hand and Song ink appeared in his hand. He swung his hand and hacked at the rock. Boom! With a loud bang, sparks flew everywhere. Not even a single cut mark was left on the curved stone. Li Daochong let out a soft cry of surprise. He had used 50% of his strength just now, but it didn't even leave a mark. This time, Li Daochong was even more certain that there was something strange about the stone. Was there some kind of mechanism? Li Daochong looked around but found nothing. This made him feel a little troubled. The last to catch up was Xie Baoshan. At this time, the curved stone looked more and more familiar. Senior Li, this stone looks very much like the home viewing platform, Xie Baoshan suddenly said. Li Daochong narrowed his eyes slightly. Xie Baoshan was right. This curved stone was very similar to the home viewing platform in the Ghost Palace, but it was obviously much smaller. It was certain that they were not the same model, but apart from the size, everything else was exactly the same. What was the connection between them? Li Daochong touched his chin. In deep thought, Li Daochong flew above the curved stone. It was also a stone platform, but it was much smaller than the home viewing platform. Xie Baoshan's words broadened Li Daochong's train of thought. The Immortal's warning about going to the Nether Path contained too much information. Li Daochong listened to Granny Yin Huan's description and combined it with the 4 guardian rings flying into the Ghost Palace by themselves to activate the spirit transfer array. He had a bold guess. That Immortal meant to let the Spirit Sea cultivators enter the Ghost Palace to take refuge. Wasn't the Nether Path the Ghost Palace? It couldn't be the Hades, right? Li Daochong squatted on the small stone platform. After feeling around for a while, he looked at Granny Yin Huan and said, "Did the Immortal only leave these words as a clue? He didn't say where the jade pendant is?" Granny Yin Huan replied, "Exalted Immortally, I've already told you everything I know. The jade pendant did exist back then, but after it flew away by itself, no one saw it again. According to the previous generations of Spirit Sea cultivators, the jade pendant should be on the Jade Divine Island." Li Daochong nodded slightly, then continued to study the curved stone. After a while, Li Daochong's eyes lit up. He took out the Yin Jade pendant that Xie Baoshan had given him previously. Li Daochong held it in his hand and looked at it. His eyes widened slightly. The material of this jade pendant was actually very similar to the material of this curved stone. Li Daochong placed the jade pendant on the small stone platform. In an instant there was a flash of light. The jade pendant merged into the stone platform and disappeared. Crack, 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 the curved stone continued to vibrate and slowly moved to the side. After the curved stone was completely moved, the group discovered that it was actually a stone door. Inside was a unique cave abode. A cool and refreshing aura came from within. The group felt as if they were bathing in a spring breeze. It was indescribably comfortable, as if they were soaking in a spiritual liquid condensed from spirit qi. Even Xuanai, who was residing in Song Ink, could not help but let out a soft moan. Then, she said in amazement, "Li Daochong, this is not spirit qi. This is immortal qi." Li Daochong's heart skipped a beat. If Xuanai had not mentioned it, he would not have known that there was such a thing as immortal qi in this world. However, this piqued Li Daochong's curiosity. He immediately entered the cave abode. The first stone room they entered was empty. There was a stone table and 2 stone stools in the middle. Other than that, there was nothing else. There were 2 open stone doors in the stone room. They led to 2 other stone rooms. In one of the stone rooms there was a stone bed. There were a few stone platforms around it. There was nothing on them. The other stone room was amazing. It was shockingly large, like a paradise. There were mountains, rivers, grass and trees. This was an independent small space. The immortal chi was emitted from here. From the moment they entered the cave abode, Li Daocheng's divine telekinesis had been searching back and forth. After a few checks, he was sure that there was no one here. At the end of the independent paradise, another stone door appeared. After entering, they entered another stone room. However, the temperature here was extremely high. There was a ball of light floating in the middle. The moment Li Daocheng stepped into the stone room, the ball of light flashed. It turned into a shadow and appeared in front of them. They could only see that the shadow was a human figure. However, the image was very blurry. They could not tell what it looked like. If the underworld is completed, it can seal the underworld demons. After saying these words, the shadow dissipated into countless light spots. They flew toward Li Daocheng and the others. The light spots entered Li Daocheng and the others' bodies evenly. The world in Li Daocheng's body rumbled. It doubled in size, and his primordial spirit became more substantial. Host has leveled up. Level 30. A prompt suddenly sounded in his sea of consciousness, but this time it was a little different from the past. It directly sent out a level up prompt and nothing else. Ever since Li Daocheng woke up, the notification would only sound when he killed an underworld ghost. It would first tell him what underworld ghost he killed, then tell him how much soul power he obtained and how much spirit chi he had leveled up. This time there was no warning. It directly told Li Daocheng that he had leveled up. The spirit chi in Li Daocheng's spirit chi increased crazily. He entered the late stage of soul formation and did not stop until he reached the peak. Not only Li Daocheng, but Hu Ling and the others' cultivation also increased. The lower their cultivation, the greater the increase. Hu Ling reached the peak of yuanying. Her 4th tail had grown, and 1/3 of her 5th tail was revealed. Yao Ling reached the early stage of soul formation. Xie Baoshan also reached the early stage of soul formation. His improvement was the greatest. Fairy Julie and the other spirit sea cultivators had even greater improvement. They had all entered the yuanying stage. The wrinkles on Granny Yin Huan's face disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. She quickly turned from an old woman into a slightly older middle-aged woman. Granny Yin Huan touched her face and immediately knelt down in the direction of the shadow. "Thank you, Immortal." The other 3 spirit sea cultivators also knelt down. "No need to thank me. Those who can enter Jade God Peak are fated people. This is your fortune. Remember, if the underworld is completed, you can seal the underworld demons." The illusory voice sounded in their ears. It was the same as the voice of the shadow. After that, there was no more sound. Chapter 700. Li Daocheng felt that something was amiss and warned, "This place is about to collapse. Let's go." After saying that, he turned into a green light and shot out. The others followed closely behind. Soon, they all flew out of the cave. The Jade God Island was sinking rapidly, and it was getting faster and faster. The towering Jade God Mountain sank into the Spirit Sea and disappeared. A huge whirlpool appeared in the sea. Li Daocheng and the others, who were floating in the air, looked at each other, not knowing what was going on. Li Daocheng frowned and dived into the Spirit Sea. He already had a guess in his heart, and now he wanted to confirm it. After diving into the sea, Li Daocheng did not find any traces of the divine Jade Island. Hence, he increased his speed. In an instant, Li Daocheng rushed into the Ghost Palace. He felt that the Jade God Mountain had not sunk to the bottom of the sea. After entering the Ghost Palace, Li Daocheng did not find the huge Jade God Island. The huge Jade God Mountain disappeared just like that? Li Daocheng did not believe it. He immediately used the teleportation portal to enter the Ghost Palace and flew out. At this time, the tens of thousands of cultivators by the forgetting river seemed to have experienced something inconceivable. They all flew in a certain direction. Li Daochong felt the overflowing spirit qi a few hundred kilometers away. Although the ghost palace was not the real Nether Ghostland, there was no spirit qi here. Now that such dense spirit qi suddenly appeared, it was naturally strange. Li Daochong surpassed all the other cultivators in the blink of an eye. The distance of a few hundred kilometers was covered in the blink of an eye. The Jade God Island, which was still in the Spirit Sea, was now standing in the middle of the floating continent of the Ghost Palace. Li Daochong revealed a slight smile. The Jade God Mountain had indeed appeared in the Ghost Palace. When the other cultivators rushed over, Li Daochong was already gone. After confirming his guess, he returned to the Ghost Palace. The 4 guardian rings were still floating above the 4 nodes of the teleportation array, constantly charging the array. Li Daochong looked at the time on his watch. Now, all he had to do was wait for the twin dragons to transfer the demon vein to the Ghost Palace. Then, he could control the Ghost Palace to the edge of the endless abyss. Li Daochong wanted to make a trip to the great wilderness and rescue the suffering mortals there. However, that would waste a lot of time. The wasteland was vast, even more so than the endless mountain range. There were at least 700 to 800 million mortals scattered around, if not a billion. Taking all of them away would be a huge workload. Li Daochong contacted Supreme White Dragon through telepathy and asked him how long it would take to transfer the demon vein. The reply he received was that there was still an hour left. It was neither too long nor too short a time. Li Daochong wasn't willing to just wait. Following the principle of saving as many people as possible, he immediately controlled the spirit array and moved the Ghost Palace to the Great Wilderness. Li Daochong's destination was, of course, Wuxia Village. After all, he only had the coordinate. When he controlled the spirit array in the Ghost Palace this time, Li Daochong felt that it was very different from before. The spirit array was several times stronger than before. It was as if someone had secretly upgraded it. Not only that, but a huge spirit light screen was projected on the back wall of the Ghost Palace. He could see the location of the entrance to the Ghost Palace. Previously, the entrance to the Ghost Palace was just a formless void similar to a spatial rift. Now, the entrance to the Ghost Palace was a door connected to a stone house. However, after the transfer was completed, Li Daochong wasn't in the mood to appreciate the changes at the entrance to the Ghost Palace. Through the huge spirit light screen, Li Daochong saw a mess in Wuxia Village. Corpses were everywhere. Li Daochong's heart skipped a beat. Although he had received a Yodwa's telepathic message, he didn't expect Wuxia Village to be massacred. Li Daochong had intended to leave his inheritance in the great wilderness so that these mortals would have a better life in the future. However, he felt that it was unnecessary because the entire Blackwood Star would be destroyed mercilessly. These mortals simply didn't have a choice. A nameless flame sprang up under Li Daochong's feet. The methods of the 2 demons were incomparably cruel. The elderly and children in the village were all slaughtered. Nothing was left behind. A small figure appeared on the spirit light screen. A child was lying motionless in the ruins. His 2 small hands were spread out on both sides. His body was covered in dust, and there were more than 10 wooden splinters on his back. His small face was turned to the side and his eyes were gray. There was no sign of life. Dried blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. A small life that hadn't even bloomed was obliterated just like that. When this scene entered Li Daochong's eyes, a certain heartstring was inexplicably plucked. He suddenly raised his head and let out a long howl, venting the resentment in his heart. Crash! Suddenly, there was a soft sound of debris falling from the spirit light screen. A small hand reached out from the ruins. There were survivors. Li Daochong's pupils shrank. He was about to send a message to Hu Ling and have her go out to save people. At this moment, An ugly skeletal dwarf ghost appeared on the spiritual light screen beside the ruins like a ghost. This ghost beast had appeared out of nowhere. It had also discovered the presence of life under the ruins. There was no time. Li Daocheng's eyes flashed with cold light. With a whoosh, he shot out. In an instant, Li Daocheng's figure appeared on the spirit light screen. Li Daocheng could crush the skeleton dwarf into powder with a single breath, but it was fatal to a mortal child. A blue-gold light flashed in Li Daocheng's eyes. Without shooting out any lightning, he used his aura to annihilate the skeleton dwarf into nothingness. Li Daocheng waved his hand through the air, blowing away the ruins. A little girl in tattered gray clothes timidly looked at him. Apparently, because a wooden frame just happened to cover the little girl's small body, she was able to maintain a crawling position. This allowed her to luckily escape the indiscriminate attack. The flying splinters didn't harm her. Because of the terrifying demonic qi left behind by the two demons, no dark ghosts visited the ruins of Wuxia village. They had long been scared out of their wit. Until just now, the skeleton dwarf that was about to evolve had boldly come over after smelling the presence of a living soul. But this was also the end of its existence as a dead soul. Li Daocheng looked at the little girl, and the latter looked back at him. Suddenly, the little girl got up from the ground and ran toward Li Daocheng with all her might. She rushed into Li Daocheng's arms and instantly broke down. Whoa! Heavenly immortal Li, father, mother, grandfather, and grandmother are all dead. They're all dead. Everyone in the village is dead, the little girl cried out. Li Daocheng stretched out his hand and patted the little girl's head. He sighed in his heart. Heavenly immortal Li, is that you? At this moment, an uncertain female voice came from behind him. When Li Daocheng came out of the ghost manor, he had sensed the presence of a Yuduo and a few villagers. Come with me, Li Daocheng said simply and took the little girl's hand and walked toward the stone house. A Yuduo and the others followed behind with suspicious expressions. They looked at the stone house with deep suspicion and a trace of fear of the unknown. They had seen the stone house appear out of thin air with their own eyes. Then, a beam of light shot out from within. The beam of light stopped and turned into a person. At the same time, the two demons floating in the sky above Blackwood Star were sitting cross-legged in the void. They closed their eyes and released their demonic will, searching for the mysterious energy fluctuations on Blackwood Star with all their might. If they could really find the inheritance or treasure left behind by a Mahayana cultivator, this trip to Blackwood Star would be worth it. The two demons would be able to make a contribution. After prying into the secrets of Blackwood Star, killing Li Daocheng became less important. But just as the two demons were focused on searching for immortal qi, a wisp of aura that seemed to belong to Li Daocheng appeared. Although the aura was very, very weak, the two demons still accurately captured it. Huh! Zhou Luoyin and Mo Jitian both exclaimed softly and opened their eyes at the same time to look at each other. Li Daocheng is in Wuxia village? What's this guy doing there? Before they finished speaking, the two demons had already turned into two streaks of black light and swooped down toward Wuxia village like black meteors. Chapter 701. The speed of the two devils was so fast that it would only take them a few minutes to reach any area on a cultivation planet. Li Daocheng held the little girl's hand and entered the stone house. His body suddenly shook and he hugged the little girl. The energy around him expanded and enveloped a Yuduo and the others as he shot into the stone house. Li Daocheng instantly sensed the two devils falling from the sky to the Blackwood planet. Li Daocheng immediately used the thousand sound escape and instantly appeared in the Ghost Palace. He activated the teleportation array in the Ghost Palace as fast as he could. A black light shot toward the stone house from the sky. Boom! With a loud explosion, a mushroom cloud soared into the sky. A huge crater appeared in the area where the stone house was. Even the ruins of Wuxia village had disappeared. The crater was several kilometers in diameter, and the terrain of the area had changed. The ghost palace shook violently. If not for Li Daocheng's fast speed, the attack would have penetrated the stone house and shot into the ghost palace. Li Daocheng finished his operation and let out a sigh of relief. If he was half a second late, the entrance to the ghost palace would have been destroyed. The attack of a Devil King Nether Demon could penetrate space. Li Daocheng didn't have time to think about the coordinates in his panic. He immediately used the coordinates that appeared in his mind. The ghost palace was teleported to the area where the demon vein was. The two devils fell from the sky. Zhou Luoyin's face was gloomy. He knew that his attack had missed. He didn't hit Li Daocheng. This kid is like a loach. He's so slippery. Zhou Luoyin said with annoyance. Zhou Luoyin, that kid seems to have some kind of spatial treasure. Not only can he teleport, but he can also completely hide his aura. Even we can't sense him. Mo Jitian stood at the edge of the crater and said with a gloomy face. This time, he won't be able to escape from this king's palm. Zhou Luoyin reached out and clenched his hand. Oh? You left a mark? Mo Jitian was surprised. Li Daocheng's cultivation isn't weak. Placing a mark on him isn't an easy task. Although this kid is cunning and slippery, he isn't ruthless enough. Just now, he had a few mortals with him. Placing a mark on them was as easy as flipping one's hand. Zhou Luo said with a sinister smile. Where are they now? Mo Jitian asked. Endless mountain range, let's go. As Zhou Luoyin spoke, he shot out towards the endless mountain range, where the demonic veins were hidden. Mo Jitian licked his lips before turning into a streak of black light and following after. Everyone in the ghost manor had naturally felt the violent tremors just now. For some reason, Xie Baoshan activated his ghost manor's heavenly eye, and a screen of light appeared in the pitch-black sky above the floating continent. Everyone could clearly see what was happening outside. They only saw a beam of black and red light shooting down. At the same time, the figures of the twin demons could be clearly seen in the sky. Seeing these two heavenly demons, the tens of thousands of spirit sea cultivators who had survived felt their hearts skip a beat. They couldn't help but feel a sense of fear. At this moment, Li Daocheng was anxiously waiting for the twin dragons to activate the demonic veins and transfer them to the ghost manor. However, the demonic veins' teleportation formation wasn't as exquisite and flexible as the ghost manor's. It took a lot of time to control, and the twin dragons still hadn't completely activated the teleportation formation. Li Daocheng sent out a strand of his divine sense and found that the twin demons were flying towards him at an astonishing speed. An ominous premonition grew in Li Daocheng's heart. The twin demons seemed to be heading straight for him. But how were they able to detect his exact location? Li Daocheng was puzzled, but now wasn't the time to investigate. Li Daocheng directly entered the demonic veins. After connecting with the twin dragons, he began to assist them in activating the teleportation formation. The demonic veins were the demonic beast's last lifeline. If they were destroyed or fell into the hands of the Hades, it would mean that the demonic beasts would completely disappear from this world. Li Daocheng's participation greatly shortened the activation process. The white dragon and black dragon knew that Li Daocheng was very powerful, but they didn't expect his divine sense to be stronger than both of them combined. The activation time, which originally needed about 45 minutes, was now shortened to 3 minutes. Li Daocheng gave it his all and didn't hold anything back. He just wanted to leave this place as soon as possible. The twin demons took only 2 minutes to reach the demonic veins from Wuxia village. This distance didn't seem far, but it was relative. If a mortal walked, they wouldn't be able to reach their destination even after several lifetimes. Zhou Luoyin, where is he? Mo Jitian's demonic sense had always covered a radius of a few hundred kilometers. It was extremely sensitive, and even an ant couldn't escape his detection. However, he didn't sense Li Daocheng's aura, nor did he sense anyone else's aura. There were only a few stray spirits scattered around. Don't worry. Isn't there a saying in the human race? Haste makes waste, Zhou Luoyin said calmly. Although Zhou Luoyin had planted a mark on one of the village warriors, the ghost manor was a space created by immortals. It wasn't that easy to penetrate. He could only sense that the mark he planted was here, but he couldn't pinpoint its exact location. After a few seconds of silence, Zhou Luoyin's lips curled up slightly. This is the Na Yu space. Mo-Jitian, it's easy to tear the same space apart, but to penetrate it and enter another specific space, we'll have to combine our powers. Come, I'll help you, Mo-Jitian said. Alright. Zhou Luoyin's dark red eyes flashed, and his demonic sense quickly searched. Mo-Jitian muttered a few words. A demonic sense separated from the twin demons and merged with each other. During this process, the entire space trembled. Demonic sense filled the sky, and the mountains below couldn't withstand the terrifying pressure and collapsed. The area within a few thousand kilometers turned into a land of death. Found it. It's here. The fused Devil King demonic will phantom opened its eyes and flew out. It landed on the ruins of a collapsed mountain range and stretched out its hands. The pair of illusory hands forcibly pierced into the space and tore open the void bit by bit. When the space was torn open, Li Daochong, who was in the demon vein, immediately sensed a surge of demonic sense. However, the demon vein's transfer array was just a step away from being activated. If he stopped now, it would take a lot more time with just the twin dragon's power. Li Daochong was burning with anxiety, and his forehead was covered in sweat. Boom. Just as the terrifying demonic sense became more and more substantial, the demon vein's transfer array was finally activated. After a few flashes, the demon vein was transferred into the ghost manor and appeared on the floating continent. Li Daochong didn't have time to adjust his breathing and rushed into the ghost manor. Not only did the twin demons discover them, they also tore open the ghost manor's space and tried to break in. Li Daochong didn't know if the ghost manor's transfer would be useful. Heavenly immortally, it's not good. The twin demons are about to break in. Just as Li Daochong was about to activate the transfer array, Xie Baoshan rushed in a panic. Li Daochong's pupils shrank. He immediately said to Hu Ling who came in with Xie Baoshan, "You guys move the ghost manor to the spatial crack. I'll go stop them." After saying that, Li Daochong flew away. Chapter 702. Exalted Immortally Just said, what did he say? He wants to stop them? Xie Baoshan was confused. The extraterrestrial demons were like demon gods. Xie Baoshan knew that Li Daochong was powerful, but he was only in the soul formation stage. He heard from Hu Ling that the dual demons were much more powerful than soul formation cultivators. Hu Ling glanced at Li Daochong's disappearing figure outside the ghost palace, and a solemn expression appeared on her pretty face. Do as Li Daoyu says. Xie Baoshan felt uneasy. The pressure that the twin devils gave him was too strong, so much so that his cultivation was being suppressed. Ghost cultivators had no resistance against the underworld demons. If their cultivation was not high enough, it would be like low-level underworld ghosts encountering the underworld demons. They would only submit unconditionally. However, Xie Baoshan was not a pure ghost cultivator. Plus, he cultivated a technique left behind by an immortal, so it was not to the extent that he could not move. At this time, the other ghost cultivators in the ghost palace were already unable to move. Many ghost soldiers and ghost generals were completely crushed by the monstrous demonic qi that rushed in. Hu Ling provided the coordinates and assisted Xie Baoshan to start controlling the teleportation array. Xie Baoshan was not as fast as Li Daochong. It would take him a few minutes to complete. The two of them were anxious, but they could only take it slow. On the other side, Li Daochong used the 1,000-sound escape and passed through the spatial door. In a few seconds, he was already in front of the spatial crack that had been torn open. terrifying demonic chi crazily poured into the ghost palace from the crack. The torn space was the spatial node of the entrance to the ghost palace. This was the only gap. Purely tearing open the sealed space of the ghost palace was not something that the dual demons could do with their strength. After all, the ghost palace was created by an immortal. Even a demon king-level underworld demon could not break it open. However, the spatial node of the entrance was used for entering and exiting. It was not a sealed space. Combining the power of the dual demons, they could still break it open. Of course, even so, the dual demons would have to pay a huge price if they wanted to barge in. The crack had already opened up an inch and was dozens of inches long, forming a long and narrow crack. It could be seen that the two palms had reached halfway into the void. The void seemed to be grasped by something, and it was being pulled apart bit by bit. If it had been an ordinary spatial secret realm, this small gap would have been enough for the two devils to use their dark arts to sneak in. The Ghost Manor's space was clearly not an ordinary spatial secret realm, and the twin devils were unable to pass through this small crack. Zhou Luoyin tried once, but it ended in failure. If he wanted to pass through, he had to at least make a hole big enough for a person to pass through. Zhou Luoyin, this spatial treasure is extremely mysterious. If we can get our hands on it and offer it to His Highness, the day when we become great demon kings will be just around the corner. Ah! Mo Jitian also tried to enter the spatial treasure. Instead of getting angry, he was overjoyed. Zhou Luoyin's eyes, however, revealed a look of bewilderment. What level was this spatial magic treasure? Even with the combined strength of two demon kings, it was still strenuous for them. They were about to tear the space apart, but they were still unable to enter. Because the two devils were focused on tearing space apart, they didn't immediately notice Li Daochong, who had already appeared on the other side. Li Daochong floated above the dark space. His eyes were cold as he looked at the spatial rift that was constantly tearing open. His aura was tightly wrapped by his divine sense. If one didn't pay attention, terrifying existences like the two devils would mistake it for a weak spatial fluctuation. Li Daochong held the Tsang ink in his hand. His primordial spirit qi overflowed from his body, shining with a blue-gold brilliance. Every pore on his body was activated, and he was ready to attack at any time. Li Daochong kept reciting the incantation of the Great Void Sword technique in his heart. As the crack grew bigger, the speed at which it was tearing also increased. It was like prying open a sheet of iron. It was the most strenuous at the beginning, but it would become easier and easier to pry it open. Because the crack was forcefully opened, the spatial power and the two devils fought fiercely, causing a spatial magnetic storm. A small spatial vortex appeared in the nearby space. The tens of thousands of Spirit Sea Realm cultivators on the floating continent of the Ghost Manor could see the entire process clearly through the huge spiritual screen that appeared in the void. Lu Mei's two small hands unconsciously clenched into fists. Her fingernails dug deep into her palms. As a low-level cultivator from the outside world, she knew better than anyone else how terrifying a Demon King-level nether demon was. As far as she was concerned, everyone here was doomed. However, her instinctive desire to live made Lu Mei hold a trace of unrealistic fantasy in her heart. Everything could only depend on Li Daochong. Lu Mei didn't think Li Daochong could stop the two devils. No matter how powerful he was only a slightly stronger ant in front of a terrifying demon king. Fairy Julie and Granny Yin Huan, the two Spirit Sea Realm cultivators who had seen Li Daochong turn the tide many times, had nothing but despair in their eyes. On the spiritual screen, Li Daochong's figure was completely surrounded by terrifying demon qi. He was so small that he couldn't withstand a single blow. The two revered dragons, who had just entered the Ghost Manor, were also looking at the spiritual screen on the other side of the floating continent. Revered White Dragon, this extraterrestrial demon can tear space. In the demon god's memories, Cultivators who can do so have to be at least in the middle or late body integration stage, revered Black Dragon said in shock. The heavens want our demon race dead, revered White Dragon muttered. It's up to Immortally, revered Black Dragon said with a tone of relief. They're not on the same level. I'm afraid Immortally won't even be able to take a single blow. Revered White Dragon sighed. The demon spirit floated beside the two revered dragons with a solemn expression and said, Revered dragons, can I go and help Immortally? Demon spirits were born for demon veins. He couldn't do what he wanted to do as he wished. His life wasn't his own. If he wanted to help, he had to get permission from the two revered dragons. Otherwise, he would be punished. The two revered dragons were silent. They didn't know whether they should let the demon spirit go or not. Perhaps the right choice was to try and transfer the demon vein again. Go, revered Black Dragon finally agreed. Revered White Dragon glanced at revered Black Dragon reluctantly, but he didn't stop him. Even if the two revered dragons knew, where could they transfer to? Even if they successfully transferred, they would only hide for a few more days. There was no safe place on Blackwood Star. If they couldn't escape now, then they couldn't. In the Ghost Palace, Xie Baoshan had been delayed for a long time due to his panic. They were only halfway through the meeting. Hu Ling was burning with anxiety. She felt that Xie Baoshan was a coward. Compared to Li Daochong, the difference was like heaven and earth. No wonder this guy chose to sell his soul and walk the path of the Ghost Dao. If he hadn't met an immortal, he would have been drowned in the torrent of time. How could he have survived until now? The crack in space grew bigger and bigger. It was already 10 inches wide and 5 feet long. Soon, it would reach the entrance for one person. After waiting for a few minutes, Li Daochong's eyes flashed with a blue-gold brilliance. It was time. He couldn't wait any longer. With a thought, Li Daochong no longer concealed his spiritual qi. With a boom, it spread out like a qi explosion. Blue-gold electric currents danced around his body. It was incomparably intense. He looked like a human-shaped electric ball. When Li Daochong had devoured the Demon King's lingering thoughts, he already knew how terrifying a Demon King-level nether ghost was. Destroying heaven and earth was a piece of cake for them. Li Daochong didn't hold back in the slightest. He used all of his trump cards. He raised the Tsang ink. Yang lightning surged and gathered on the blade. It was dazzling. On the floating continent of the Ghost Manor, the tens of thousands of spirit sea cultivators who saw this scene were all shocked. They didn't expect Li Daochong to be able to release such a huge amount of lightning power. Even primitive cultivators like them, who were isolated from the world, knew that lightning power would increase the damage of any nether ghost. The stronger the lightning power, the greater the damage. Exalted Immortal Li Daochong is actually a lightning cultivator, Fairy Julie exclaimed. Li Daochong had surprised her again. Good boy. I didn't expect this. Granny Yin Huan sighed. In addition to the two of them, there were exclamations from all around. These pedantic primitive cultivators had never seen such a scene. Li Daochong's figure was wrapped in lightning power. In their eyes, it was as if he was the thunder god who controlled lightning power. Li Daochong finished accumulating power in an instant. Without the slightest hesitation, he turned into a bolt of lightning and fiercely slashed the Tsang ink at the crack. The third move of the Great Void Sword technique. Tao begets one, one begets two, two begets three, three begets all things. Great Void's third sword, all things return to the origin. Chapter 703. Li Daochong poured all his strength into this attack. In front of the two devils, he had no ability to hide his strength. Zing 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 zing, a highly condensed saber light slashed out vertically. Li Daochong condensed the sword, or rather, the saber, to the size of the spatial rift. The saber light overlapped with the crack and slashed out. Zhou Luoyin and Mo Jitian worked together to tear the space, but they didn't expect Li Daochong to attack. They didn't expect this attack to be so powerful. The saber light directly split the demonic will body of the demonic will of the Demon King in half. Lightning power poured into the demonic will manifestation and annihilated it. Tearing the space consumed most of the demonic will manifestation's energy, so it couldn't withstand Li Daocheng's attack that contained the origin of heaven and earth. The lightning power mixed within was also stimulated to its maximum destructive power, like the 9 heavens' primordial lightning. Zing zing. Zhou Luoyin and Mo Jitian poured their demonic wills into the demonic will manifestation, and the lightning power instantly entered their bodies through the demonic will. The 2 devils were surrounded by lightning, but the saber light was still powerful after splitting the demonic will manifestation, and it slashed towards Zhou Luoyin. Damn it! Zhou Luoyin let out a low growl, but a chill ran down his spine. Zhou Luoyin couldn't understand how a mere soul formation cultivator could release such terrifying destructive power. Even he felt threatened. In Luo canopy. A black curtain instantly appeared in front of Zhou Luoyin. Ka. The saber light slashed the black curtain, and there was an ear-piercing sound of metal scraping. Boom! The black curtain was repelled by the saber light, and Zhou Luoyin was sent flying, disappearing into the horizon. Mo Jitian's dark eyes coldly glanced at the disappearing Zhou Luoyin, and then turned to look at the spatial crack. A powerful spirit qi overflowed from the crack. On the floating continent of the Ghost Manor, tens of thousands of spirit sea cultivators were dumbfounded. Li Daocheng had sent a demonic godlike extraterrestrial devil flying. This. Granny Yin Huan was speechless. Grandma Li, exalted immortal Li, could he be a true immortal? Fairy Julie's beautiful eyes were filled with confusion. Li Daocheng, is that really you? Lu Mei stared blankly at Li Daocheng on the void spiritual screen. Revered Black Dragon, Qian Yang Immortal has a successor, Revered White Dragon stuttered. Divine Transformation Stage. He's only at the Divine Transformation Stage. The Black Dragon Lord exclaimed. Li Daocheng launched a thunderous attack when no one was optimistic about his chances. He killed the demonic perception body and blasted away an extraterrestrial demon. The tens of thousands of spirit sea realm cultivators, who were originally resentful towards Li Daocheng, no longer had the slightest bit of disrespect. The dozen or so spirit sea realm cultivators who had attacked Li Daocheng felt their throats go dry. They swallowed hard, and a chill ran down their spines. Only now did they realize how stupid and ignorant their previous actions were. They only thought that the extraterrestrial demon was terrifying, but they didn't know that this unfamiliar young cultivator was just as terrifying. If Hu Ling hadn't pleaded for mercy and Li Daocheng really turned hostile, none of them would have survived. Wang. Cultivator Wang, we just walked around the gates of hell. A Jin Dan cultivator who had attacked Li Daocheng before stuttered. Yes, the cultivator surnamed Wang said with a trembling voice. Li Daocheng naturally didn't care about what these pedantic spirit sea realm cultivators thought. His eyes coldly stared at the gap. Whoosh! A black spear ray shot from outside. Li Daocheng slashed out with his saber again. Boom! The spear ray and the saber ray cancelled each other out. Li Daocheng didn't want to go out and fight, but a figure appeared outside the gap and was about to enter. Li Daocheng didn't hesitate. He turned into a bolt of lightning and shot out. Boom! Li Daocheng used his body to knock Mo Jitian, who was about to enter, out. This collision sent Mo Jitian flying back dozens of meters. Li Daocheng landed in front of the gap. He felt like he was seeing stars and couldn't stand steadily. The Devil King's devil body was tougher than an immortal treasure, and with the support of the terrifying devil Qi, Li Daocheng felt like he had crashed into a spirit seed mountain that was as solid as a rock. His bones were about to fall apart. After being knocked back dozens of meters, Mo Jitian's pale face revealed a look of shock. He looked at Li Daocheng with a hint of fear in his eyes. This kid can't be left alive. A thought flashed through Mo Jitian's mind. After invading the spirit world, Mo started out as a soul-devouring ghost. After going through all kinds of battles and devouring countless powerful souls, he grew into a devil king nether devil. He had seen as many geniuses as there were hairs on a cow and fought countless experts. However, no one had ever made him feel fear. Even when he invaded the human race, he fought for 3 days and 3 nights with a genius body integration stage cultivator. In the end, Mo was defeated and fled. He had never been as scared as he was today. Mo clenched the black spear in his hand, Mo spear. Human cultivator, you're very powerful. Unfortunately, you haven't matured yet. Otherwise, you would have become the blade of the human race's counterattack against the Hades. You human cultivators rely on your advanced cultivation techniques the most. Your biggest weakness is the lack of arrowhead cultivators. Although the Mahayana cultivators of the 3 great cultivation empires are powerful, they are far inferior compared to the Devil Emperor of the Hades. But you're different. If you cultivate to the Mahayana stage one day, no, even if it's just the tribulation passing stage, you'll become an extremely dangerous existence. Mo eyes shone with a deep brilliance. Li Daocheng's face was expressionless. He quickly adjusted his breathing in his internal world. He wasn't listening to Mo at all. A sword, a blade, and a collision. In just 3 moves, Li Daocheng's spiritual energy had been depleted by half. He didn't have much energy left. Li Daocheng was only thinking about how to stall for time. As long as the ghost palace was moved, the spatial tear he opened would close. If he wanted to open it again, he would have to do it again. Li Daocheng could see that tearing apart space with the 2 demons wasn't easy. It consumed a lot of energy. Li Daocheng didn't even think about defeating or repelling the 2 demons. He was just trying to stall for time. Every second he delayed was beneficial to Li Daocheng. Li Daocheng also had to divert a portion of his energy to check on the underworld demon that was sent flying. It had been a while, but that fella still hadn't appeared. This made Li Daocheng feel very uneasy. That underworld demon's aura had actually disappeared. Li Daocheng didn't believe that his sword could kill that underworld demon. Now there were 2 demons. One was in the light, while the other was in the dark. He couldn't even defeat one of them, let alone 2. The situation was very unfavorable for Li Daocheng. At the same time, when the demon spirit rushed over to help, the 2 dragons took out a magic treasure from the demon vein and gave it to the demon spirit. Demon spirit, this is a spirit gun given by a 5-star refiner of the human race to repay a favor to the demon emperor. It's called Nirvana. Unfortunately, the demon race can't use Nirvana's true power. Take it and give it to heavenly immortally. It might come in handy. There are also 2 silver soul bullets here. At this time, the demon spirit had already arrived at the spatial tear. It looked like there was nothing special about it. In fact, it even looked a little shabby. The 2 dragons said that if the full power of this gun could be used, it might even be able to kill the underworld demon. The demon spirit had always believed the 2 dragons, but at this moment, he was a little doubtful. The design of this magnetic gun was no different from the guns used by the natives of some primitive cultivation planet. The handle was made of wood. The demon spirit had never left Blackwood Planet, so he didn't know what kind of wood it was. The barrel was made of metal. The demon spirit also didn't know what material it was made of. It was black and had white spots on it. Naturally, one couldn't judge a magic treasure from its appearance. However, the demon spirit couldn't sense a trace of spirit energy from this spirit gun. It was clearly a gun made of ordinary wood and metal. The only difference was that the barrel was longer. From the trigger to the muzzle, it was about 10 inches long. In fact, the demon spirit wasn't very clear about what a spirit gun was. As far as he knew, he had never seen such a magic treasure. The demon spirit was a little worried that if he gave this thing to Li Daocheng, it would delay things. Demon spirit, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and give nirvana to heavenly immortally. Just as the demon spirit was hesitating in front of the spatial tear, the white dragon's voice sounded in his sea of consciousness. The demon spirit quivered and hurriedly replied, "Yes." With that, the demon spirit passed through the spatial tear. As soon as he passed through, the demon spirit felt a terrifying demonic aura. He saw a black curtain fall from the sky and cover Li Daochong. The moment the demon spirit came out of the spatial tear, he entered the range of the black curtain. F***ck. The demon spirit cursed in his heart. He really came out on time. Holding the Tsang ink saber, Li Daochong didn't care about the demon spirit that suddenly appeared and slashed at the black curtain. Bang! The brilliance flashed for a moment before disappearing. Other than that, nothing else happened. The black curtain fell and covered Li Daochong and the demon spirit. Li Daochong's face darkened. He immediately slashed dozens of times, and each slash landed squarely on the black curtain. However, other than the sound and light, the black curtain didn't suffer any damage. Zhou Luoyin, who had succeeded in his sneak attack, hovered at a low altitude as he looked at the controlled Li Daochong. He smiled sinisterly and said to Black Screen, "A mere spirit-severing stage cultivator can make this king use Yinluo dense cover. Li Daochong, you should be proud." Chapter 704. In the darkness, Li Daochong kept slashing with Tsang ink, trying to break the black cloth and rush out. However, Li Daochong's attack did not work at all. The Tsang ink, which had reached the level of an immortal treasure, could not even break a piece of black cloth. It was Li Daochong's first time seeing this kind of netherworld treasure. Huff huff. In an instant, Li Daochong had slashed hundreds of times. He was panting heavily, and more than half of the spiritual energy in his body had been consumed. Li Daochong looked anxious. If he could not rush out, everything would be over. Once the two devils entered the ghost palace, this game of chase would be completely over. Just as Li Daochong used the Great Void Sword technique again, the darkness began to shrink. It was extremely fast. At this moment, the demon spirit fell to the ground. When the darkness shrouded, a black thunder struck the demon spirit. With just one strike, the demon spirit lost the ability to move. After he obtained the immortal's light, his cultivation had reached the early stage of the divine transformation realm. It was hard to say if the demon race's early stage of the divine transformation realm was as powerful as human cultivators. However, the strength of their physical bodies was definitely dozens of times stronger than that of human cultivators. The demon race relied on their strong physical bodies. The demon spirit was a demon puppet created by gathering the last of the demon race's strength at the moment of life and death. Its physical body was even stronger than that of the demon race. Even so, the demon spirit could not withstand a single strike. In fact, when the darkness shrouded, at least a dozen black thunders were released. Only one of them hit the demon spirit. The rest were all aimed at Li Daochong. In terms of cultivation, Li Daochong was only 2 small realms higher than the demon spirit. The dozen thunders hit him, but they sank like stones into the sea. Not only was he unharmed, but he also replenished Li Daochong with some spiritual energy and thunder power. However, Li Daochong used them up very quickly. Lying on the ground, the demon spirit looked at Li Daochong in confusion. It could not understand why such a powerful nether lightning had no effect on Li Daochong. Seeing Li Daochong gasping for breath, the demon spirit knew that he was at the end of his tether. He forced himself to take a deep breath and tried to speak, but his internal injuries were far more severe than he had imagined. He couldn't make a sound, and he couldn't even circulate his demon chi. A large crack had appeared on his demon core. Li Daochong didn't have the time to care about the demon spirit. He only knew that it wasn't dead yet. The black screen was shrinking at an extremely fast speed. When Li Daochong slashed out with his sword, the space covered by the black screen was only a few meters away. There was a loud boom. The black screen shook violently. The power of the third sword of Great Void was naturally much greater than that of Li Daocheng's previous slashes. However, apart from the loud noise, this attack did not cause any substantial damage to the black curtain. Instead, the speed at which the black screen was shrinking became even faster. Whoosh! When the black screen came into contact with Li Daocheng, a black electric current flashed through his body. This time, Li Daocheng couldn't absorb the black electric current. His body was in pain, and the places he came into contact with the black screen were scorched. Li Daocheng's heart suddenly sank. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. There were Hades substances that the hot-blooded upgrader couldn't absorb? Beat. Demon King Nether Treasure, Inluo densely covered. Destroy this treasure and you can absorb it. Just as Li Daocheng was feeling bewildered, a notification came from his sea of consciousness. So that's it. Li Daocheng calmed down a little. It was good that he could absorb it. He could absorb the released nether lightning, but he couldn't absorb the nether lightning that came into contact with the black screen. Destroy this treasure? Li Daocheng glanced at the Tsang ink in his hand. Regardless of cultivation, strength, or treasure level, it was far inferior to this Inluo densely covered. How could he destroy it? Li Daocheng's heart turned cold. He didn't expect that he would die in such a way. He couldn't accept it. A bitter smile appeared on Li Daocheng's face. Li Daocheng, don't give up. Xuanyi's voice came from the Tsang ink. Li Daocheng naturally wouldn't give up. The thunder power in his body erupted once again. Buzz, buzz. Ever since Li Daocheng entered the black prison, his resources had been constantly depleted. However, they hadn't been replenished. The large amount of resources he had plundered from 13 Specter had been almost used up. He had given them away, sold them, and exchanged them. He had also used up a lot of them to make talismans. When he arrived at Blackwood Planet, there was nothing here except for a large amount of spiritual herbs. Li Daocheng didn't have any of the materials he needed. Now, Li Daocheng could be said to be poor. He had nothing except for the Tsang ink saber. His best talisman was a talisman, but because he didn't have the materials, he couldn't cook without rice. From the beginning of the Tianfeng trade fair until now, Li Daocheng hadn't been idle for a moment. If it weren't for the fact that he had replenished himself a few times, he would have overdrawn himself no matter how powerful he was. Li Daocheng's most powerful technique was still talismans. As long as his cultivation increased, his talisman crafting would also increase. Before entering the black prison, Li Daocheng's previous limit for talisman crafting was level 17. Now, as long as he had the corresponding materials, crafting level 20 talismans shouldn't be too much of a problem. At this moment, Li Daocheng didn't even have a low-level talisman on him, let alone a high-level talisman. The space compressed by the black curtain was getting smaller and smaller. Li Daocheng and the demon spirit were squeezed together, almost unable to move their bodies. Li Daocheng saw that the black curtain was about to compress him and the demon spirit into meat paste. With a move of his telekinesis, the Tsang ink flew horizontally and supported the black curtain. Li Daocheng silently muttered a sentence. The Tsang ink suddenly expanded and supported the black curtain. Finally, the black curtain stopped shrinking. Outside, Zhou Luoyin let out a soft cry of surprise. His demonic consciousness suddenly increased a bit, controlling the gathering of Inluo to shrink. But the black curtain didn't react. Zhou Luoyin's expression darkened. The gathering of Inluo was a demon king's nether treasure. It was once owned by the great demon king of Hades, Gonggong. Zhou Luoyin spent a lot of effort to buy it from a great demon king of Jiuyou country. For this, Zhou Luoyin paid most of his savings and even gave up a star field. Later on, this treasure helped Zhou Luoyin win countless battles and had never failed. But now, it was being restrained by a mid-soul formation cultivator. This made Zhou Luoyin somewhat unable to accept. Within the black curtain, Li Daochong controlled the Tsang ink. The two magic treasures of different attributes engaged in a fierce battle. But in just a moment, the Tsang ink was somewhat unable to hold on. The blade made a cracking sound as it was being compressed bit by bit. As the weapon spirit of the Tsang ink, Xuan'ai let out a painful groan. Li Daochong pushed the lightning energy to the limit, trying to use the lightning to increase the damage of the netherworld item to increase the bargaining chip of the Tsang ink against the black curtain. But it still didn't have much effect. High immortally, use this, try. The demon spirit finally managed to catch his breath. He took out Nirvana and said with a muffled voice. Li Daochong looked at the gun in the demon spirit's hand and smiled bitterly. Li doesn't have much spirit energy left. He can't use the spirit energy gun. Clatter. The demon spirit was heavily injured. He couldn't even hold the spirit energy gun, and it fell to the ground. At the last moment before he lost consciousness, he used his telekinesis to take out a brown pill from his storage ring. Eat. The demon spirit only had time to spit out one word before he fainted. The brown pill rolled to the ground. Li Daochong actually had some recovery elixirs on him, but his body was already empty. Even if he ate normal recovery elixirs, it wouldn't have much effect. Li Daochong didn't have time to think too much. He could only try his best. He picked up the elixir that the demon spirit took out and swallowed it. Then, he picked up Nirvana. Li Daochong looked at the Spirit Energy Guns magazine. There were 2 shining silver spirit energy bullets. As for what material they were made of, he didn't know. Almost at the same time that Li Daochong picked up the spirit energy gun, a burst of heat exploded in his lower abdomen. The effect of the elixir that he just swallowed was amazing. Li Daochong's spirit energy was quickly replenished. Good guy! Li Daochong exclaimed in admiration as a bluish-gold light flashed across his eyes. In the blink of an eye, Li Daochong was fully recovered. The demon spirit's recovery elixir was simply godly. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that it was an elixir. This elixir must be a 3-star elixir or above. Otherwise, how could it have such a powerful effect? Li Daochong didn't have time to think too much. He had more confidence in the spirit energy gun in his hand. Ka. Tsang ink was constantly compressed. The blade began to curve. Li Daochong raised the spirit energy gun in his hand. He poured a lot of spirit energy into it. At the same time, he added lightning power. He pointed the gun at the black screen and suddenly pulled the trigger. Bang! Flames spurted out from the muzzle. Li Daochong only felt the web between his thumb and forefinger go numb, and the huge rebound force pushed him back. Poochie! A big hole was shot through the black screen. Li Daochong used all his strength but couldn't leave a mark on the black screen. This seemingly unknown spirit energy gun. The gun easily pierced through the black screen. Mobile version of the website. Chapter 705. Zhou Luoyin was about to activate the Yinluo canopy for the final attack when his mind shook and his mind seemed to explode. Then, a terrifying light shot out from the Yinluo canopy and went straight for Zhou Luoyin. What? Zhou Luoyin's eyes twitched as he felt the threat of death. A dignified demon king-level nether demon was actually a terrifying threat of death. This was unacceptable to Zhou Luoyin. Even so, Zhou Luoyin didn't dare to be careless. The moment the light shot out, he took out the Demon King shield. This was a hexagonal prism shield made from Mara nether crystals. Mara nether crystal was a special kind of nether crystal in the Hades. It was very tough and could be compressed infinitely. Every time it was compressed, its strength would double. As long as there was enough Mara nether crystal, it could increase its strength infinitely. A Demon King shield needed 1,000,000 tons of Mara nether crystal, which was bigger than a football field. When such a huge volume was compressed into a 2-meter-long, 1-meter-wide prism-shaped shield, it was only half an inch thick. With the special properties of Mara nether crystal, It could be compared to an immortal treasure just by compressing 1,000,000 tons. How could a demon king's personal nether treasure not be refined? Its strength and toughness would be further increased. The demon king's shield could block the radiant, level spirit particle cannon, which was a self-cultivator's weapon with very strong penetrating power. It could also block the explosion of a spirit nuclear bomb and deal with most of the spirit particle weapons. With this shield, it was like having a life-saving trump card. So, although Zhou Luoyin was shocked, he didn't panic. The Demon King's shield magically appeared 2 meters in front of him. Although the beam of light that pierced through the darkness was fast, it was still very far away from the true beam of light. The light beam was produced by the spirit magnetic bullet Silver Soul in the air. So, even if it was very close, Zhou Luoyin still had plenty of time to react. Of course, this was based on his super strength. If it was a nether demon below the demon general level, it would be very difficult to dodge this attack. Bang! With a muffled sound, the Silver Soul bullet hit the Demon King's shield. Crack! There was a crisp sound. Zhou Luoyin's eyes suddenly opened. This sound made his heart jump. Before he could react, the Demon King's shield was pierced through. How could this be? Zhou Luoyin almost screamed as he looked at the light beam that penetrated the Demon King's shield in disbelief. Zhou Luoyin was stunned for a moment and missed the opportunity to dodge. He could no longer dodge and felt a chill on his back. Just as he was about to use some kind of demonic technique to defend himself, a black spear swept over and intercepted him less than half a meter away. The Devil King's shield slowed down the Silver Soul bullet's speed, giving Mo Jitian enough time to react. The two devils didn't like each other, but they didn't have any deep hatred for each other. Any Devil King level Nether Devil was extremely important to Hades. The birth of a Devil King required tens of thousands of years, devouring countless powerful souls. Apart from that, it also required a certain amount of luck. It was impossible to evolve from an underworld ghost to a demon king just by devouring powerful souls. This was the same logic as human cultivation. One still needed to have a high level of comprehension. Otherwise, no matter how much they devoured, they might not be able to become a demon king. Clang! The Silver Soul bullet broke through the densely packed Inluo and penetrated the Demon King's shield. Its impact was still very strong, and when it hit the Demon Pole's spear, an ear-piercing sound of metal colliding erupted. Mo Jitian's wrist went numb and he almost lost his grip on the gun. Under the huge impact, the Demon Pole's spear swept towards Zhou Luoyin and sent him flying. Zhou Luoyin's chest suffered a heavy blow and was sent flying. Puff! He spat out a mouthful of black blood. This Demon King had actually suffered an internal injury. The devil chi in his body churned, and his internal organs felt like they were being torn apart. The power of that beam of light far exceeded Zhou Luoyin and Mo Jitian's imagination. The most terrifying thing was that the impact alone was able to injure Zhou Luoyin. The most terrifying thing was that a clear dent had appeared on the Demon Pole spear in Mo Jitian's hand. The part that was hit by the Silver Soul bullet even showed signs of corrosion. Mo Jitian looked at Li Daochong, who was still holding his spear and shooting 100 meters away, with shock in his eyes. An old-fashioned flintlock was in his hand, and the muzzle of the flintlock flickered with spirit energy. A deep trench appeared under Li Daochong's feet, extending for more than 100 meters. The recoil from this spear forcefully pushed Li Daochong 100 meters away. Zhou Luoyin clutched his chest with a gloomy expression as he looked at Li Daochong from afar. Spirit energy spear? The same term flashed across the minds of the two devils, but they soon felt that something was wrong. Since when did the spirit energy spear become so powerful? The two devils had experienced countless battles, and they were the main force during the invasion of the human race 1,000 years ago. After fighting with countless human cultivators, they had seen all kinds of Dharma treasures and spirit energy weapons. The most powerful spirit energy spear they had seen was forged by the only 7-star blacksmith of the 3 great cultivation empires, Grandmaster Wu Jie, Demon Slayer. However, the upper limit of a demon slayer was to kill a demon general, and it was not much of a threat to a demon king. Emogitian had experienced a demon slayer once, and the demon king's shield was able to block it. The seemingly spiritless spear in Li Daochong's hand was actually more powerful than the demon slayer that killed hundreds of demon generals 1,000 years ago. Without the protection of the 3 super netherworld treasures, the demon king's shield and the demon pole's spear, that spear was enough to blast Zhou Luoyin into pieces. A spirit energy spear that could instantly kill a demon king. Keywords: handgun. The true trump card that the human race was proud of had always been the unique cultivation technology among the 10,000 races in the spirit realm. However, for thousands of years, ever since the human race went through the 3 cultivation industrial revolutions, all kinds of high-level Dharma treasures and powerful spirit energy weapons emerged one after another. Even now, there had never been a handgun that could kill a demon king in one shot. But now, Zhou Luoyin and Emogitian had a taste of this spirit energy weapon that human cultivators dreamed of. Hades had always been monitoring the human race's development of high-end cultivation weapons, and the super-powerful spirit energy spear was one of them. Because once a spirit energy spear that could kill a demon king was developed and mass-produced, a Yuanian cultivator could kill a demon king Hades. This was the same logic as an ordinary person who had a spirit energy spear could easily kill a Tyrannosaurus Rex. This way, Hades' advantage over the human race would disappear. However, what Hades was most worried about still happened. Such a spirit energy spear had already been developed. Its power was much more powerful than what Hades' think tank had analyzed. In fact, it wasn't just the 2 demons who were shocked. Li Daochong was the same. The shock he received was even greater than the 2 demons. Li Daochong's eyes were filled with shock as he looked at the gun in his hand. Li Daochong had never used a spirit energy spear before. He only knew that it was easy to use. The only difficulty was that it required spirit energy to pull the trigger. Without spirit energy, one couldn't fire the gun. The amount of spirit energy required was related to the level of the spirit energy spear. The lowest level spirit energy spear could be used by ordinary people as long as they had spirit stones. As for the highest level spirit energy spear, without Yuaniang's cultivation, it was impossible to pull the trigger. Li Daochong almost killed a demon king the first time he used a spirit energy spear. Anyone would find this unbelievable. Li Daochong quickly recovered from his shock. There was only 1 bullet left in the spirit energy spear in his hand. Although there was only 1 bullet, Li Daochong's heart was much more at ease than before. He felt that with a gun in hand, he could conquer the world. Li Daochong naturally wouldn't waste the last bullet. He would either not use it or kill at least one of them with this shot. As long as he killed a demon king, Li Daochong's cultivation would definitely undergo a qualitative leap. At this moment, the 2 monsters facing him were undoubtedly 2 big bosses. Once Li Daochong killed them, he would definitely obtain a large amount of experience points and treasures. The fastest mobile version of the website. Chapter 706. With Nirvana in hand, Li Daochong faced the 2 demons once more, and the feeling of helplessness in his heart gradually disappeared. The long-lost sense of hunting once again emerged. Li Daochong subconsciously licked his lips, as if he could already smell the beautiful scent of powerful dead souls. At this moment, the spatial rift behind Li Daochong rapidly shrank. Seeing that the spatial rift they had painstakingly torn open was about to close, the 2 demons naturally revealed anxious expressions. After all, the 2 demons had paid a huge price to tear open such a large rift. Paying a price to achieve their goal was one thing, But the problem was that the two demons couldn't even enter the ghost manor. They could only watch as their previous efforts were wasted. How could the two demons not be anxious and angry? Emojitian was naturally unwilling. Holding the demon's spear in his hand, the demonic energy around him exploded as he prepared to attack. Li Daochong turned the spear and aimed at Emojitian. In that instant, Emojitian's back trembled as a chill rose from the soles of his feet. The attack he was about to launch was immediately stopped. As one of the 12 demon kings by the side of the 9 serenities prince, Emojitian was actually intimidated by a spirit magnetic spear. Of course, it wasn't just Emojitian. Zhou Luoyin also didn't dare to act rashly. That spirit magnetic spear was simply too powerful. Although Zhou Luoyin's demon body was suppressed when he entered Blackwood Star was a half-dead planet. Here, he could use 60 to 70% of his strength. In fact, it was already very terrifying, but that spirit magnetic spear could still injure him. Zhou Luoyin didn't doubt that Li Daochong's spirit magnetic spear could cause devastating damage to him even in his peak state. The two demons looked at the pitch-black muzzle with sinister expressions. Although they were furious, they didn't dare to attack. They could only watch as the spatial rift behind Li Daochong closed bit by bit until it disappeared. Li Daochong knew that the spatial rift hadn't closed, but that Xie Baoshan had activated the spirit transfer array. The entrance to the ghost manor should have been moved to a mine near the endless abyss. Before the transfer, Li Daochong received a telekinesis transmission from Hu Ling telling him to hurry back. Li Daochong only replied, "You guys go first. Don't worry about me." Li Daochong was fully aware of the terror of the twin devils. If he turned around and returned, the twin devils would have enough time to tear open the space and enter the ghost mansion with him. Li Daochong could not take the risk. Although this way Li Daochong had no way out, it also relieved him of his worries. Moreover, with the spirit gun that the demon spirit gave him, Li Daochong would have the opportunity to kill the two demons. "Li Daochong, you're doing very well." Emojitian gnashed his teeth as he glared at Li Daochong. "It's indeed very good. Do you have any objections?" Li Daochong asked calmly. "Do you think this king doesn't know that your gun only has one bullet left?" Zhou Luoyin said coldly. "Yes, there is indeed only one bullet left. Li didn't say there were many left." Li Daochong curled his lips and did not try to hide anything. "Do you think one bullet can deal with the two of us?" Zhou Luoyin said gloomily. "It can't," Li Daochong said straightforwardly. Li Daochong's telekinesis instantly calculated the result. The probability of killing the twin devils with one shot was 0. They were Devil King level nether devils, not some random dog or cat. If he wanted to kill them with one shot, he would have to stand on the same side and not move. Since you know you can't deal with them, why don't you obediently put down the gun? Seeing that you are a talent, if you pledge allegiance to Hades with your ability, His Highness will definitely put you in an important position. It is even possible for you to become a Devil King cultivator. Zhou Luoyin threw out an olive branch at the right time. You want Li not to be a human, but a ghost? Is there something wrong with your brain? Or is it because you haven't taken a shit for 3 years that the shit went into your brain? Li Daochong looked at Zhou Luoyin in amusement. You! Zhou Luoyin was furious, but when he saw the muzzle of the gun in Li Daochong's hand, he did not dare to move. Listen up. I said I can't deal with the two of you, but I can still kill one. If you don't believe me, you can try. Li Daochong said quickly. The twin devils' faces were gloomy. Naturally, they knew what Li Daochong meant. Nether devils were the same as human cultivators. The higher their cultivation, the more afraid they were of death. After all, it was not easy to cultivate to this level. Death meant that everything they had worked so hard to achieve would be turned to dust in an instant. Emojitian saving Zhou Luoyin was already extremely benevolent. It was absolutely impossible for the twin devils to sacrifice their lives for the sake of the other party. For a moment the air seemed to freeze. Li Daochong and the twin devils faced each other. Neither of them dared to move. One man and two devils were on full alert. They seemed to be motionless, but in fact, they had already finished accumulating power and were waiting for the best opportunity. The moment one of them showed weakness or made a mistake, the other side would immediately attack. Li Daochong not only held Nirvana in his hand, but the Tsang ink saber also flickered with sparks as it floated beside him. He was ready to defend or attack at any time. Li Daochong's eyes were no longer black. They were completely filled with a bluish-gold brilliance. The eye of lightning punishment was ready. Li Daochong's gun was aimed at Mo-Jitian, but in his heart, his target was Zhou Luoyin. The logic was simple. An injured prey was naturally easier to hunt than a healthy one. However, Li Daochong's current state showed that he was more vigilant against Mo-Jitian. Moreover, Li Daochong wanted the twin devils to think that he was more inclined to deal with Mo-Jitian. The twin devils had no idea that Li Daochong would treat them as prey. They also didn't know that Li Daochong could devour dead souls. Logically speaking, it was correct to be more vigilant against Mo-Jitian. After all, Zhou Luoyin was injured. The threat wasn't as great as Mo-Jitian's. However, the twin devils didn't know that Li Daochong wasn't being defensive. He had already treated them as his prey. Several minutes passed. The twin devils still couldn't find a flaw in Li Daochong's defense. This kid seemed to have no blind spots. The spirit chi he had used up earlier had somehow recovered to full. In fact, the twin devils didn't move. They weren't really attracted by Li Daochong's spirit energy gun. Instead, they both had their own plans. As Demon King level nether demons, how could they not have life-saving trump cards? The spirit energy gun's power was indeed terrifying, but it might not be able to kill the twin devils. It was just that the twin devils didn't want to be the other's pawn. Li Daochong naturally knew the twin devils' plan. He was thinking about how to take advantage of it. Li Daochong took advantage of the gap in their confrontation to search through all the items in his storage ring. Li Daochong was indeed at the end of his rope these days. He had used up most of his items. However, he hadn't completely emptied his reserve. Li Daochong still had 2 magic treasures in his storage ring. However, Li Daochong wasn't good at using them. No one else could use them, so he hadn't touched them. One of them was the pill furnace he had bought from Mysterious Sky Old Man at the underground auction on planet Northstar. The square cauldron. Ever since Li Daochong had snatched this cauldron from Old Man Xian Kong at the auction, he had placed it in his storage ring to sleep. He had not taken it out when he was refining the devil-releasing pill and had only used the spirit energy-gathering cauldron as a cauldron. The other item was a Starlight-class spirit energy gun. Li Daochong hadn't been interested in spirit energy guns before. Compared to hot weapons, Li Daochong preferred cold weapons. These 2 completely different magic treasures had been ignored by Li Daochong because they were of little value. Until a few minutes ago, Li Daochong hadn't thought of any use for these 2 magic treasures. But now, an idea had formed in Li Daochong's mind. Although the square cauldron was an alchemy furnace, it could be used for defense. Almost all alchemy furnaces were made of very strong materials. The temperature of the fire produced by alchemy furnaces was quite high. How could it be used as an alchemy furnace without a tough and heat-resistant material? The Starlight-class spirit energy gun was a very ordinary spirit energy gun. Putting aside the Devil King-class nether demon, it could only kill malicious ghosts. It wasn't very useful against soul-catcher ghosts. This was also because Li Daochong had forgotten about this spirit energy gun after he looted it from 13 Specter. It was really useless. But now, this Starlight-class spirit energy gun might be able to play a role in deceiving people. Li Daochong's lips curled up slightly. His eyes were a bit more cunning. Li Daochong suddenly moved. The finger that was on the spirit energy gun's trigger bent a little. This action made Mo-Jitian break out in cold sweat. he subconsciously went into a defensive position. Almost at the same time, the Tsang ink beside Li Daochong shot out and slashed at Emojitian. Zhou Luoyin didn't move. A cold smile flashed across his face. He thought to himself, this kid finally can't take it anymore. Emojitian, delay him. Try to attract his attention. As long as he fires, I will immediately take action and kill him in one shot. Hearing Zhou Luoyin's voice transmission, Emojitian cursed inwardly, You old fox. You want me to be your bait? Emojitian stabbed out with his spear and clashed with the Tsang ink. At the same time, he threw out a black fireball with his left hand. Li Daochong was already prepared. The square cauldron appeared in front of him and instantly expanded to the size of a small house. It completely blocked Li Daochong behind it. Boom! With a loud sound, the black fireball shattered the square cauldron. At the instant of the explosion, bang! A gunshot was heard. A beam of light shot out from the explosion. Emojitian was already prepared. But when he heard the gunshot, he was still shocked. He took out 3 nether treasures at the same time. Devil King Shield, Devil Star, and Devil Spear. These were Emojitian's 3 strongest nether treasures. At the same time, Zhou Luoyin moved with a sinister smile. He looked at Li Daochong, who was behind the explosion cloud, as if he was looking at a dead man. After that shot, Li Daochong no longer had anything to rely on. Killing him was as easy as killing an ant. The fastest mobile version of the website. Chapter 707. Even though Emojitian had brought out 3 underworld treasures, he still felt uneasy. The power of the previous spear was too terrifying. It pierced through Zhou Luoyin's strongest underworld treasure, the sifting net, then the Devil King Shield, and finally left a dent in Emojitian's Devil Spear. The 3 underworld treasures that Emojitian used to defend himself were on the same level as the previous 3. In other words, this spear could destroy at least 2 underworld treasures and send the 3rd flying. Emojitian was prepared to dodge. However, the scene that Emojitian expected did not happen. With a bang, the spear light hit the Devil King Shield. Not only did it not penetrate the Devil King Shield, it did not even leave a mark. The Devil King Shield easily blocked the attack. What? Emojitian was stunned. At the same time, Zhou Luoyin ignored his internal injuries and activated his Devil Core, rushing towards Li Daochong with his Devil Claw aimed at the top of his head. Zhou Luoyin had a sinister smile on his face. However, at this moment, Li Daochong's cold eyes flashed with a hint of a smile. Zhou Luoyin faintly felt that something was wrong and increased the strength in his hands. Li Daochong had already used the 1,000-sound escape. The black muzzle suddenly appeared and aimed at Zhou Luoyin's chest. Zhou Luoyin smiled disdainfully, but in the next moment, his smile froze. Li Daochong pulled the trigger of the spirit magnetic gun. Bang! Flames spewed out. The terrifying spirit magnetic energy brought along a silver soul bullet as it whizzed out. Boom! Zhou Luoyin's chest was penetrated by the silver soul bullet, leaving a fist-sized hole. The silver soul bullet came out from his back. Zhou Luoyin's back exploded and black blood spurted out. Bang! Li Daochong even poured in yang lightning. Zhou Luoyin looked down at his chest in disbelief. This spear had accurately hit his Devil Core. A one-hit kill. The Devil Core was shattered by the silver soul bullet. Zhou Luoyin still could not believe that he was killed by a demigod cultivator. Zhou Luoyin tried to struggle, but his Devil Core was shattered and he did not have much strength left. His severely injured devil body was stiff like wood and could not be controlled. Li Daochong stretched out his hand. Tsang ink appeared in his hand, and with a horizontal slash, zing, the brilliance swept past Zhou Luoyin's neck. The Demon King's head flew into the air, and Zhou Luoyin spun in the air with a terrified expression. It landed on the ground with a thud. Li Daochong stomped down, and the Demon King's head was stomped into meat paste. Beat. Kill the Demon King. Soul power obtained. Converted into spiritual energy. Host has leveled up to level 31. Li Daocheng's sea of consciousness beeped in a timely manner. Boundless spiritual qi gushed forth, constantly washing over his primordial spirit and spirit body. Li Daocheng didn't even dare to imagine the amount of spiritual qi he had obtained this time. It was actually more than the sum of all his previous spiritual qi. In the Immortal's Cave abode, Li Daocheng had already reached the peak of the soul formation late stage. Now there were no obstacles and he easily entered the soul formation pinnacle stage. After advancing a small realm, the growth of his spiritual energy showed no signs of stopping, and it continued to climb. However, the next level from the soul formation pinnacle stage was the void refinement stage, which was a huge leap. The void refinement stage was another watershed. Therefore, even though the amount of spiritual qi was huge, Li Daocheng's primordial spirit was constantly transforming. It was no longer in the state of a shadow, but more like a real body. Boom! Li Daocheng's inner world expanded 100 times. The astonishing change shocked Li Daocheng himself. From a small space before, it had transformed into a big world. It was enough to become a small cultivation planet. His divine sense also began to condense quickly and entered his primordial spirit. To be precise, it was no longer a primordial spirit, but a clone formed by the condensation of spiritual qi. Li Daocheng could be easily separated out of his body, forming two Li Daocheng. The clone formed by the primordial spirit was Li Daocheng's primordial spirit. The host has leveled up to level 32. The notification sounded again. Li Daocheng broke through the soul formation stage and entered the void refinement stage. Early stage void refinement stage. The experience points gained from killing a demon king had greatly exceeded Li Daocheng's expectations. His strength had skyrocketed. In addition to the transformation of spiritual qi, Li Daocheng had also absorbed the power of dark fire from Zhou Luoyin. The power of yang lightning had also undergone a qualitative transformation. Li Daocheng's 3.6 million pores felt indescribably comfortable. He exhaled a mouthful of spiritual qi, and his eyes flashed with blue-gold light. Mo Jitian looked at Li Daocheng's spiritual qi in shock. He did not know what was going on. You cheated. Mo Jitian finally reacted and said angrily. So what if I did? Li Daocheng looked straight at Mo Jitian and retorted with a calm tone. When Li Daocheng finished off Zhou Luoyin with a single shot, Mo Jitian immediately understood that the shot that was fired at him was just a cover. You used your last bullet. Aren't you still going to die? Mo Jitian gripped the Mo Jitian spear and said coldly. Is that so? Li Daocheng's tone revealed a hint of playfulness. Mo Jitian felt that something was wrong, but he could not pinpoint what exactly was wrong. Li Daocheng's cultivation base was seriously inconsistent with the information that he had received. From the vague information that the devil python sent back, he knew that Li Daocheng's cultivation base was at the mid-soul formation stage. However, the qi that Li Daocheng was currently emitting was clearly that of a void refinement stage cultivator. The qi that Li Daocheng was emitting was indeed that of a soul formation stage cultivator. How did it become a void refinement stage cultivator? Mo Jitian felt that something was amiss, but he still did not take Li Daocheng seriously. As a devil king, Mo Jitian naturally did not fear a mere void refinement stage cultivator. A void refinement stage cultivator was naturally much stronger than a soul formation stage cultivator. However, compared to a devil king, they were still worlds apart. Those below the body integration stage were nothing in Mo Jitian's eyes. Li Daocheng's tone made Mo Jitian, who was already on the verge of exploding, even more irritable. Brat, no matter what, I still have to thank you for getting rid of that fellow who was in my way. It's better for one person to get the credit than to split it between two people. Your mortal soul is also very powerful. Devouring it might be of some help to me in my advancement, Mo Jitian said gloomily. The dead soul on your body smells pretty good too. Li Daochong subconsciously licked his lip. Mo Jitian was stunned for a moment. Then, dark red flames burst out from his eyes. You're bluffing. After saying that, Mo Jitian instantly turned into a ray of black light and shot towards Li Daochong. 10 minutes ago, Li Daochong could not detect the movements of the two devils at all. He could only rely on his intuition. Now, Li Daochong's eyes flashed with a bluish-golden light. He could see Mo Jitian's figure clearly. Li Daochong raised his Tsang ink and stood still. Clang! Mo Jitian's spear and Tsang ink collided. After the crisp sound of metal colliding, a shock wave exploded. In the blink of an eye, the ground within a radius of several thousand kilometers shook. Boom, bang, crack. In a few seconds, a ray of black light and a ray of green light split into tens of thousands of afterimages that appeared in the void and on the ground. It was as if there was a black and green meteor shower between heaven and earth. Actually, these were the afterimages of Mo Jitian and Li Daochong's battle. Because they were simply too fast, it felt as if tens of thousands of afterimages had appeared at the same time. Every collision brought about a terrifying shockwave. The entire great wilderness was shaking. The space of Blackwood Star was becoming more and more unstable. Li Daochong had to use the 1,000-sound escape to be on par with Mo Jitian's speed. Mo Jitian's strength was suppressed. Thus, Li Daochong was still not a match for a Devil King Dark Ghost at the early void refinement stage. However, he had the initial strength to fight a Devil King Dark Ghost. He was not completely helpless. Li Daochong constantly switched between the 9-split saber art and the thunder punishment art, or he merged them with his thunder energy. Mo Jitian appeared to be on par with Li Daochong on the surface, but he was groaning in his heart. Almost every time he clashed with Li Daochong, a powerful yang lightning would drill into his body and wreak havoc. Although this yang lightning could not injure him, it could still hurt him and affect his demonic core. Just like that, one man and one demon fought from the sky to the ground, and from the ground to the sea. They spanned across half of Blackwood Star. They exchanged countless blows, and it seemed as if neither of them could do anything to the other. The more Mo Jitian fought, the more shocked he became. This brat was clearly not a match for him before. He fled in fear when he saw him and Zhou Luoyin. How did he become so powerful after killing Zhou Luoyin? How could he be on par with him at 60% of his strength? A huge question mark appeared in Mo Jitian's heart. Mo Jitian's strength was suppressed. He was worried that he would trigger the spiritual energy laws of Blackwood Star. Li Daochong was also in peak condition. He had just absorbed a huge amount of spiritual energy, and his cultivation was not stable yet. His spiritual body was also not used to it. He was fighting a protracted battle with Mo Jitian. Firstly, he wanted to use him as a sparring partner. Secondly, he wanted to buy time to consolidate his cultivation. When one reached the void refinement stage and had a clone, they could multitask. Therefore, as time passed, Li Daochong became stronger and stronger. Mo Jitian gradually fell into a disadvantage. Damn it! Mo Jitian cursed in his heart. If he was in peak condition, he would not be suppressed by this brat. Although he was annoyed, Mo Jitian did not dare to release all of his demonic qi. Li Daochong's attacks became fiercer and fiercer. Mo Jitian, who was being forced to retreat, suddenly roared. Mo Jitian's spear flashed with black light. Demonic Flame Killing Seal. Mo Jitian used his killing move when he was not in peak condition. It placed a heavy burden on his demonic body and might harm his foundation. If not, why would Mo Jitian wait until now to use it? Li Daochong's cold face didn't change much, but a glint flashed through his eyes. Great Void's first sword, life and death on a thread. Two terrifying energies of completely opposite attributes enveloped half of Blackwood Star. On one side was a black flame dragon formed by nether fire. On the other side was a 10,000-kilometer-long sword ray. The two collided like Mars crashing into Earth. Boom! With an earth-shattering explosion, both sides were annihilated. The black flame dragon was cut in half by the sword ray, and the sword ray was greatly weakened. However, the remaining sword ray was still fierce. Emogitian was caught off guard. If not for the Demon King's shield blocking it, this sword ray would have cut him in half. The Demon King's shield shattered, and a huge, bone-deep wound appeared on Emogitian's chest. Chapter 708. The battle between Li Daochong and Emogitian was earth-shattering. The commotion was so great that it affected the entire Black Tree Star. Half of the planet's topography was altered by the terrifying shockwave. The sealing barrier of the endless mountain range was easily destroyed. With the seal removed, the countless dark ghosts in the endless mountain range were released. However, before these dark ghosts that had been sealed for over 2,000 years could wreak havoc on Black Tree Planet, they were wiped out by the shockwaves of the battle. Li Daochong's every attack was accompanied by a powerful lightning strike. The thick gray clouds that enveloped Black Tree Planet were formed by the accumulation of the aura of death over a long period of time. The gray clouds were blown to pieces during the battle. Even the clouds that had accumulated over 2,000 years could not withstand the devastation of Li Daochong's lightning power after he leveled up. This battle eliminated more than 50% of the aura of death on Black Tree Planet. Although the sealing barrier that sealed the endless mountain range was destroyed, it released a large amount of immortal aura when it collapsed. Back then, the immortal not only sealed Black Tree Planet, but also drove most of the dark ghosts that invaded Black Tree Planet into the endless mountain range. The fact that Black Tree Planet could exist for 2,000 years under the eyes of the dark demons without being discovered meant that the immortal's divine abilities had reached an unimaginable level. The immortals seemed to know that the sealing barrier of the endless mountain range would not last forever. One day, it would gradually weaken under the erosion of time. Therefore, the immortal left a backup plan. When the barrier dissipated, it would release the last of its remaining heat, turning it into immortal aura to dissolve the aura of death. The so-called immortal aura was actually extremely dense spiritual energy. At least, that was how Li Daochong understood it so far. Previously, he had felt immortal aura in the Immortal's Cave. As far as Li Daochong was concerned, he did not feel that it was immortal aura. It was just spiritual energy with a density of more than 20%. A density of 20% was an extremely terrifying number. Normally, a cultivation planet with a density of 5% could be considered a holy land for cultivators to go to. At the very least, it was a first-tier cultivation planet. The Shenghua Federation was a human cultivation nation second only to the three great cultivation empires. In the vast star field, only the central star field's Shenghua planet was considered a first-tier cultivation planet. The classification of cultivation planets was also determined by the concentration of spirit qi. A planet with 1% spirit qi concentration was a fifth-grade cultivation planet. 2% was a fourth-grade cultivation planet, 3% was a third-grade cultivation planet, and 4% was a second-grade cultivation planet. According to Li Daochong's knowledge, such an environment no longer existed after the invasion of the Hades. Even before the invasion of the Hades, in the heyday of the human race, it was rare to find a place with a spirit qi concentration of 20%. If there was, it would be a cultivation holy land for heavenly heroes and earthly spirit. Li Daochong's power of thunder and the immortal energy produced by the dissipation of the barrier quickly dissolved the aura of death that had accumulated in the boundless mountain range and the great wilderness. Li Daochong watched as Emogitian disappeared into the horizon, but he did not give chase. It was not that Li Daochong wanted to release the extreme devil heavenly path out of kindness. If it was a human cultivator, it might have been possible. Li Daochong would never feel any compassion for dark ghosts. It was just that Li Daochong had thought of a better way to deal with Mo Jitian. It would also solve a huge hidden danger in his body. Ever since the Black Prison, Li Daochong had not encountered any more lightning tribulations. The reason for all of this was because of the special environment on the Black Prison planet. Black Jupiter's situation was somewhat similar to the Black Prison, but the environment here was a bit more chaotic. The power of laws was naturally weakened. Thus, Li Daochong's many breakthroughs in cultivation had not triggered any lightning tribulations. But this did not mean that Li Daochong could sit back and relax. Once he entered a world with normal spirit qi laws, he would immediately be rejected by the spirit qi laws and trigger a lightning tribulation. Thus, for now, Li Daochong could not leave Black Jupiter at all. He could either go to the Black Prison or stay here. Once he went back, Li Daochong's lightning tribulation would be enough to destroy a cultivation planet. A small, low-level cultivation planet like Blue Bay Star would even be destroyed. At this moment, the thunderclouds slowly gathering above Li Daochong's head caused his pupils to suddenly shrink. Even though the barrier that sealed the endless mountain range had dissipated into immortal qi, it could not dissolve the death aura that had accumulated on Black Jupiter for more than 2,000 years. At most, it could weaken the death aura and slow down the process of Black Jupiter's transformation. That was the Immortal's goal back then. However, the Immortal did not expect that more than 2,000 years later, a young man with pure yang lightning power would erupt in an earth-shattering battle with a Demon King-level nether ghost on Black Jupiter when the seal barrier dissipated. Li Daochong's lightning power had a very strong destructive power against death aura. As the battle spread out, it formed a lightning net that continuously baptized the death aura on Black Jupiter. Every time Li Daochong and Mo Jitian collided, the resulting shockwaves would at least cover a radius of several thousand kilometers. In a single breath, they had clashed thousands of times, flying up into the sky, down into the ground, and down into the sea. Although Black Jupiter was huge, it was nothing in the eyes of Demon King, Nether Ghost, and Void Refinement cultivators. Thus, more than half of Black Jupiter was affected. After being baptized by Li Daochong's lightning power, more than half of the death aura had dissipated. The seal barrier dissipated, and the spirit qi in the spirit sea joined in. The death aura on Black Jupiter had the upper hand and the environment was changing at an astonishing speed. The gray clouds of death aura in the sky almost disappeared and turned into normal white clouds formed by water vapor. The spirit qi laws quickly took over. Black Jupiter returning to normal was naturally a good thing. However, Li Daochong's powerful and unfamiliar spirit qi would immediately trigger the recovered heavenly tribulation. Apart from the Tsang ink, Li Daochong did not have any magic treasures, spirit talismans, cauldrons, or spirit machines. He only had a few high-grade spirit brains, which could not withstand the heavenly tribulation. No matter how powerful Li Daochong was, he would not be able to withstand the heavenly tribulation with just his spirit body and the Tsang ink. However, Li Daochong was not worried at all. Instead, a playful look appeared in his dark eyes. He looked in the direction where Mo Jitian disappeared, waiting for something. The spirit qi on Black Jupiter was recovering at an astonishing speed. In fact, the moment Li Daochong and Mo Jitian started fighting, Black Tree Star's transformation had already begun. In just a few minutes, a loud boom came from the direction where Mo Jitian disappeared. The horizon was completely covered by rolling dark clouds. However, these dark clouds were no longer lifeless. Instead, they were full of vitality. Li Daochong's lips curled up slightly. He turned into a streak of green light and flew toward the dark clouds. The spirit qi on Black Jupiter was recovering. Mo Jitian, who only had 30 to 40% of his devil qi suppressed, could no longer adapt to the spirit chi environment and triggered the nine heavens primordial lightning. Li Daochong was not worried about triggering the heavenly tribulation because he knew that Mo Jitian would also trigger the nine heavens primordial lightning, diverting the disaster. Li Daochong had used this move on 13 Specter. It was the same now. Chapter 709. After Mo Jitian was injured by Li Daochong's sword, he immediately fled. Even though he was unwilling in his heart, after all, his strength had been suppressed. He did not dare to unleash his full strength no matter how furious he was. If Mo Jitian removed the restriction on his body, killing Li Daochong would be a piece of cake. However, he would also trigger the nine heavens primal lightning and die. If he did not remove the restriction, he would not be able to defeat Li Daochong. If he removed the restriction, he would die together with Li Daochong. Either way, he would die. There was no point in continuing the fight. Mo Jitian could only choose to flee. Mo Jitian was extremely fast. In a few minutes, he entered the spatial zone of Blackwood Star. However, before Mo Jitian could open a spatial gate to leave Blackwood Star, a thunderous roar came from above his head. Mo Jitian's pupils shrank. He looked up and saw rolling thunder clouds gathering above his head. Boom! Boom! A bolt of primal lightning came crashing down. Damn it! Mo Jitian cursed. He quickly took out his Mo Jitian spear to defend against the primal lightning. Bolts of primal lightning came one after another, growing stronger and stronger. Mo Jitian took out all his netherworld treasures. The nine heavens primal lightning grew stronger with the increase in spiritual energy. Gradually, Mo Jitian could not hold on any longer. Every bolt of primal lightning contained a terrifying amount of spiritual energy. For netherworld devils, this kind of origin law was the most effective way to restrain them. Mo Jitian was exhausted from defending against the attacks, and cracks began to appear on the weaker netherworld treasures. Mo Jitian clenched his teeth and held on. Thick devil scales grew on his body. After a few minutes of bombardment, Mo Jitian managed to withstand 81 bolts of primal lightning. 8 netherworld treasures were destroyed by the primal lightning. The remaining 5 were damaged to varying degrees. However, he managed to survive the craziest phase of the primal lightning. Mo Jitian secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He revealed a faint smile and felt somewhat proud. Even the nine heavens primal lightning is not this strong. Although more than half of the death chi on Blackwood Star had been destroyed and spiritual energy had taken the upper hand, it was not a pure spiritual energy environment. Therefore, the nine heavens primal lightning triggered by Mo Jitian was relatively weak. Otherwise, even a Devil King netherworld devil would not be able to withstand it. Mo Jitian was also aware of this point. His earlier fear had already disappeared. As long as he could hold on a little longer, he would be able to survive this wave of nine heavens primordial lightning. The rate at which the primordial lightning fell became slower and slower. As long as Mo Jitian didn't move, a bolt of primordial lightning would fall every 10 seconds. Just as Mo Jitian was rejoicing, the thunderclouds above his head suddenly roiled. Boom! Crack! 3 bolts of primordial lightning descended at the same time. Mo Jitian, who had let down his guard, was almost struck. What's going on? Mo Jitian's face was filled with confusion. He did not know why the primordial lightning had suddenly increased in strength. Before he could react, boom, crack, crack, another 3 bolts of origin lightning struck down, the frequency of which had also increased. F***CK. Mo Jitian cursed in his heart. Suddenly, his body trembled as he caught sight of a green figure not far away from him. Li Daochong had unknowingly appeared less than 100 feet away from him. Mo Jitian was doing his best to resist the primordial lightning, which consumed a lot of his energy. His attention was also focused on the primordial lightning. adding on the fact that the primordial lightning was extremely powerful. No one would be foolish enough to barge into the lightning clouds. Wasn't that courting death? Therefore, Mo Jitian did not pay attention to his surroundings. When he saw Li Daochong, his expression was one of shock and confusion. Just like that, Li Daochong casually stood on a slope 1,000 feet away, calmly looking at Mo Jitian. In fact, the 9 heavens primordial lightning triggered by Mo Jitian was about to dissipate. What was descending now was Li Daochong's lightning tribulation. However, when an undead object appeared within the lightning tribulation's range, the tribulation lightning would first strike the undead object. Although cultivators had violated the rules, they were still products of the spiritual qi laws. On the other hand, undead objects were outside of the spiritual qi laws. They were something completely opposite. Therefore, when the two were together, the tribulation lightning would definitely strike the undead object. Mo Jitian only had time to take a glance before another 3 bolts of primordial lightning struck down. He had no choice but to retract his gaze and continue to resist the lightning strike. The frequency of the lightning strikes increased, and the number of tribulation lightning bolts also increased. However, Mo Jitian could clearly feel that the lightning power was not as strong as before. Although it was still a huge threat to Mo Jitian, he was able to resist it with ease. What Mo Jitian did not know was that what was descending was not primordial lightning, but tribulation lightning. The 9 heavens primordial lightning was the highest lightning power that could be triggered in the spiritual realm. Tribulation lightning was 1 level lower. Whoosh! Just as Mo Jitian was busy resisting the lightning strikes, a saber light came slashing down. Mo Jitian narrowly dodged it, but he was struck by the tribulation lightning because of it. The lightning power penetrated his body, causing him to grimace in pain. Black smoke rose from his body, emitting an unpleasant burnt smell. Although it was not fatal, it was extremely painful and would last for a while. Mo Jitian gritted his teeth and looked at Li Daochong. His eyes were blood-red, and he wanted nothing more than to skin Li Daochong and crush his bones. If he knew that he was taking Li Daochong's place to withstand the lightning tribulation, he would probably explode in anger. Occasionally, 1 or 2 weaker lightning bolts would strike at Li Daochong, but these lightning bolts were nothing to Li Daochong. Li Daochong did not get close to Mo Jitian. He would occasionally attack from 100 feet away to disrupt Mo Jitian's rhythm. Roar! After a few times, Mo Jitian roared in anger, but he could not do anything to Li Daochong. Li Daochong, this king will definitely kill you. Mo Jitian's eyes were spitting fire. You won't have the chance, Li Daochong muttered to himself as he looked at Mo Jitian. Boom! Crack! Crack! More than 10 tribulation lightning bolts struck down at the same time. At the same time, Li Daochong's eyes flashed with blue-gold brilliance. The brightness was 100 times more dazzling than the lightning bolts in the thundercloud. Heavenly lightning art, eye of lightning punishment. Boom! Mo Jitian did not expect Li Daochong to have such a divine ability. He was caught off guard and was struck by 2 lightning bolts. Mo Jitian was sent flying and crashed into a hill several kilometers away. Not a single black scale on his body was intact. The tribulation lightning continued to strike mercilessly. Mo Jitian only had the Mo Jitian spear left among the 5 nether treasures. The rest were all shattered. More than 10 tribulation lightning bolts struck the hill that Mo Jitian was in. The hill was instantly blasted into a huge pit. Mo Jitian was in the pit. His entire body was smoking as he roared once more. However, this time there was less anger in his voice and more pain. Mo Jitian knew that if he did not remove the seal, he would be toyed to death by Li Daochong. Mo Jitian did not dare to hesitate. He did not care if he would attract even stronger 9 heavens primordial lightning as he removed the seal. Demonic qi suddenly erupted like a volcano. Pucci! However, just as Mo Jitian was about to fight for his life, a tsang ink-colored saber pierced through his chest. Mo Jitian looked down in disbelief. The saber was stained with black blood. Li Daochong was already prepared to deal a fatal blow. He was waiting for Mo Jitian to weaken. After so many lightning strikes, Mo Jitian's demonic body was already covered in wounds. His demonic core was also damaged and his nether treasures were destroyed. He did not have much defensive power left. Mo Jitian could not believe that this was real. Even though his chest was pierced, this was not a fatal blow to the nether demon. Mo Jitian swung his extreme devil spear at Li Daochong. However, the latter had already leaped out of the way and missed. Boom! Crack! More lightning bolts struck down from the skies. Mo Jitian hurriedly whipped out his extreme devil spear to defend against the lightning bolt. However, the extreme devil spear was on the verge of breaking down after receiving so many strikes. After blocking 3 bolts of lightning, the extreme devil spear was sent flying. The remaining lightning bolts seemed to be attracted by something as they gathered together and struck at Mo Jitian. Not good! Suddenly, Mo Jitian thought of something and yelled out. However, it was too late. The combined lightning bolts struck down on the Tsang Ink Saber. At this moment, the Tsang Ink Saber was the best conductor, guiding all the lightning power into Mo Jitian's demonic body. Li Daochong, you despicable B*****. Fight me if you've got the guts. Mo Jitian glared at Li Daochong and yelled out. Li Daochong stood there with his hands behind his back and a smile that did not seem like a smile on his face. He was oblivious to Mo Jitian's yelling. No matter how high his cultivation state was or how strong he would not be able to withstand the lightning power seeping into his body. Furthermore, his demonic body was already on the verge of collapsing after withstanding countless lightning strikes. In fact, that single strike was more than enough to claim Mo Jitian's life. However, there were still more lightning bolts descending from the tribulation clouds above. It was just that the frequency was not as high and the lightning power was weakening as well. Li Daochong raised his head and looked at the skies with a smile on his face. Using a Demon King level Hell Demon as a magic weapon against the lightning bolts was indeed a tried and tested method. Mo Jitian glared at Li Daochong with a death stare. If looks could kill, Li Daochong would have died a few hundred times over. Li Daochong then grabbed out with his hand. Instantly, Mo Jitian's dantian exploded, and a blood-red object the size of an egg landed in Li Daochong's hands. Demon King Pill. Li Daochong had just absorbed a Demon King, and the spirit chi within his body was still unstable. If he were to absorb another, his body might not be able to take it. Li Daochong was not in a hurry. He kept the Demon King Pill first. Whether he wanted to absorb it or sell it, he could decide later on. Not long after the Demon King Pill left Mo Jitian, the demonic body of this Hades Demon King was smashed into smithereens by the lightning bolt. Eventually, the demonic consciousness of the demonic body dissipated as well. The only thing left was the Demon King Pill. The fastest mobile version of the website. Chapter 710. Li Daochong stored the Demon King Pill into his storage ring and glanced at the extreme demon sky's dust that had dissipated into the air. He grabbed the unconscious demon spirit with one hand and disappeared in a flash. He had killed a demon king and released all the lightning tribulation that he had accumulated. Li Daochong, who had been making losses ever since he came to Blackwood Star, had finally recovered some lost ground. In this way, he hadn't lost anything. Li Daochong, who had stepped into the void refinement realm, used the 1,000-sound escape technique and moved as fast as lightning. The white clouds that had gathered above the wasteland looked like a flash of blue lightning. When the primitive tribes of the wasteland saw this flash of lightning, they all knelt down, thinking that an immortal had appeared and chased away the death chi. As for the underworld creatures and ghost beasts, they were unlucky. Although the spiritual chi couldn't directly kill them, it could weaken them until they dissipated. At the edge of the endless abyss, in a mine, Hu Ling had assisted Xie Baoshan to move the entrance to the ghost palace here. This was the only exit out of Blackwood Star, but even with the door in front of her, Hu Ling couldn't do anything. Besides Li Daochong, no one could open the sealed space crack. Li Daochong challenging the two demon kings alone was no different from courting death in Hu Ling's eyes. She naturally didn't want Li Daochong to do so. However, since Li Daochong insisted, Hu Ling couldn't do anything. She could only be anxious, but her heart was filled with despair. After the ghost palace moved to the mine, Hu Ling stood at the edge of the mine and looked in the direction of the wasteland, anxiously waiting. This kind of hopeless waiting was a kind of torture. A dazzling brilliance appeared in the sky and the ground trembled. It seemed that the entire Blackwood Star was shaking. Not only Hu Ling but the remaining tens of thousands of Spirit Sea Realm cultivators all ran out of the Ghost Palace. Everyone anxiously felt the collision between the three terrifying auras in the distance. Soon, a powerful aura disappeared. At first, everyone thought that Li Daochong had fallen and that this result was already predetermined. But after a few breaths, everyone found that something was wrong. The battle was still going on and was even more intense than before. The powerful aura that disappeared just now was the aura of death, not spiritual aura. In other words, Li Daochong did not die, but an extraterrestrial demon was killed. The despairing Hu Ling was completely stupefied. Li Daochong was fighting one against two, yet he could still kill one. How did he do it? A big question mark appeared in everyone's mind. Then, the surroundings shook as if there was an earthquake, and the brilliance in the horizon was dazzling. The gray clouds of death in the sky continued to dissipate. Li Daochong's aura grew stronger and stronger, constantly clashing with the powerful death qi that still existed. After a while, the other powerful death qi also dissipated. Everyone naturally hoped that Li Daochong would fight the extraterrestrial demons because this was their only hope of survival. However, everyone believed that Li Daochong had no chance of winning. This was an extremely strange and contradictory feeling. Cultivators with high cultivation levels could even sense a super thunderstorm that could destroy the world. In fact, the location of the battle was very far away from them, but because the aura emitted by Li Daochong and Mo Jitian had already surpassed the limit of a planet, these Spirit Sea Realm cultivators could still sense it. In addition to the intense and terrifying battle, the cultivators also felt the changes in the surrounding environment. The aura of death was quickly disappearing, and the spiritual aura was becoming denser. The cultivators had never dreamed of such a change. Fairy Julie finally could not help but walk to Hu Ling's side and ask, "Exalted Immortal Hu, exalted immortally, what is his background?" Hu Ling's face was blank and she thought, "You ask me, but who am I supposed to ask?" When the terrifying thunderclouds in the sky dissipated, a blue brilliance flashed and landed in front of everyone in the blink of an eye. The blue brilliance was naturally Li Daochong, who had returned. After landing, Li Daochong glanced at everyone. He had already deliberately restrained his aura. However, the pressure of an upper-level cultivator still made the tens of thousands of Spirit Sea Realm cultivators unable to breathe. Everyone had the urge to kneel down and submit. No one dared to have the slightest doubt or disrespect towards Li Daochong. He had single-handedly faced two extraterrestrial demons. Not only had he killed them, but he had also come out unscathed. The existence of such a cultivator was far beyond the knowledge of the Blackwood Star's Spirit Sea Realm cultivators. Li Daochong threw the demon spirit to Hu Ling and said, "He is injured. Take him to the revered twin dragons to heal." Hu Ling habitually lifted her eyes to look at Li Daochong, but she just couldn't do it. The spiritual pressure naturally emitted from Li Daochong's body made Hu Ling's most proud charm technique completely ineffective. Hu Ling obediently helped the demon spirit back to the ghost mansion, while Li Daochong soared into the sky. When Hu Ling saw Li Daochong leave as soon as he came, her heart skipped a beat, and she hurriedly asked, "Li Daoyu, where are you going?" "Mending the heavens." Li Daochong only replied with these two words before disappearing. "Mending the heavens?" Hu Ling was dumbfounded. Li Daochong naturally did not need to explain anything to Hu Ling. In the blink of an eye, he arrived at Blackwood Star's sky beyond. This was the area where Li Daochong had sent a wisp of his divine soul not long ago. The twin demons were also here, trying to remove the gelatinous seal around Blackwood Star. Because of Li Daochong's appearance, the twin demons did not succeed. However, they still managed to open a gap in the seal. Li Daochong's wisp of divine soul had not completely disappeared, so he could sense the gap in the seal. Li Daochong glanced at the gap. With a flash of his divine sense, he quickly calculated its size and returned to the seal. Then, lightning shot out from his eyes, and the lightning net quickly sealed the gap. Li Daochong naturally could not use the Immortal's method to seal the gap. He could only use his own method. The lightning net seal might not be comparable to the Immortal's seal, but it could temporarily close the gap and achieve the effect of the seal. After Li Daochong finished everything, he immediately returned to the mine. He shot into the endless abyss and arrived at the location of the spatial crack. Not long ago, Li Daochong had just removed the demonic qi from the spatial crack. Half of it had not been dealt with. At this time, when Li Daochong probed with his divine sense again, his pupils shrank, his brows furrowed, and he let out a surprised gasp. Not only had the demonic qi been completely restored, but it was even stronger than before. The strength of this demonic qi was even stronger than the two demon kings Li Daochong had killed. Li Daochong felt that something was wrong. He immediately focused his divine sense and quickly probed the seal. A few seconds later, Li Daochong came into contact with a strange, faintly discernible demonic thought. Out of curiosity, Li Daochong immediately disguised it with a wisp of his divine sense and probed the demonic intent. In an instant, the scene before Li Daochong changed. He appeared in a world shrouded in darkness. He seemed to be standing in front of a floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the starry dark red city below with his hands behind his back. Li Daochong could vaguely see his own appearance from the floor-to-ceiling window. Li Daochong was shocked. How was this still his face? His face was as sharp as a knife, his eyebrows sharp and his lips thin. His face was pale, but there was no color of death. Instead, he had a devilishly handsome face. He was over 2 meters tall and wore a black cardigan, revealing the sculpted lines of his muscles. He was robust but not bloated. Li Daochong naturally understood that this was not his appearance. He seemed to have entered someone else's consciousness and could see everything through their eyes. Wasn't this soul possession? Li Daochong was a little confused. He was just probing the demonic qi from the spatial crack. How did he enter someone else's consciousness? Your Highness, Mo Jitian and Zhou Luoyin's underworld tablets have shattered. At this time, an elder's voice came from behind him. The devilishly handsome face reflected in the floor-to-ceiling window flashed a cold smile, then he turned around. A black-bearded, black-haired, square-faced, ferocious-looking elder stood there with his head lowered respectfully. I already know. A magnetic voice with a strong sense of emptiness came from Li Daochong's perception. How did your Highness know? The elder looked at the man Li Daochong in confusion and asked. Li Daochong was very surprised to be addressed as Your Highness. He had unintentionally possessed someone else's body, and it turned out to be a Your Highness. Ha ha! The man who was addressed as Your Highness heard the elder's question and suddenly looked up and laughed. The elder's expression was uncertain. He did not know why Your Highness was laughing. Your Highness pointed at his own head and said, Li Daochong is here right now. The elder's turbid eyes suddenly widened, and an expression of disbelief appeared on his face. Li Daochong, who was taking advantage of the situation to peek, heard this and his soul moved slightly. He did not expect the other party to know. Li Daochong, we've fought so many times and we finally meet today. You made me feel that surging passion when I invaded the human race all those years ago. As thanks, I'll let you take a stroll in my consciousness. I wonder what Mr. Li thinks? The man said playfully. Li Daochong, who was far away on the Black Tree planet, felt his heart skip a beat. The other party had deliberately let him sneak in. Li Daochong vaguely guessed the man's identity. You're Sakyamapa, Prince of Jiyo. Mr. Li's foresight is godly. That's right, it's me. Mobile version of the website. Chapter 711. Although Li Daochong had guessed it, his body still trembled when he heard the man admit it. Starting from 13 Specter, everything that Li Daochong encountered had the prince's shadow behind it. Li Daochong tried to sense Sakyamapa's level, but to no avail. Other than being able to sense the outside world through Sakyamapa's sight and hearing, he could not sense anything else. Mr. Li, your bone age is not high, but you're quite capable. Your combat power is rare in this world. Ben Huang sees that you're a talent and admires you. If you submit to Ben Huang and work for the Hades, Ben Huang will not pursue your past and will even give you great benefits, allowing you to unleash your potential to the extreme. When the time comes, the immortal realm will be yours. What do you think? Sakyamapa continued. Li Daochong was confused. Even if he wanted to win someone over, he should have some skills. Did he think that he was a 3-year-old child? He had just killed 2 of his capable subordinates, and this was all he could do? Li Daochong muttered in his heart, but the soul in Sakyamapa's mind spoke. Li is honored to receive the prince's favor, but Li still feels comfortable being a human. I'm not used to being a ghost or a dog. Mr. Li, you don't have to reject so quickly. Ben Huang is absolutely sincere. He's not playing any tricks. Sakyamapa was full of sincerity. Was there something wrong with this prince's brain? Li Daochong's main body on Black Jupiter curled his lips and said, people who walk different paths cannot work together. There's no need to say more. Sakyamapa smiled. All right, Ben Huang, let's take a step back. Mr. Li doesn't have to submit to the Hades and form an alliance with Ben Huang. As long as Mr. Li agrees, Ben Huang will immediately give you 3 immortal-level cultivation methods, 5 immortal-level magic treasures, 500,000 high-grade spirit stones, and various 3-star and above spirit pills. What do you think? Li Daochong's face revealed a look of surprise. This was a huge investment. Why was this Prince of Hades trying to win him over? Li Daochong really wanted to know the reason. Alliance? Mr. Li is just an itinerant cultivator. He hasn't even been to the 3 major cultivation empires. He's neither a descendant of a super family nor a senior executive of a super cultivation company in the human realm. Mr. Li really doesn't understand. Why would the heir of Jiyo ally with Mr. Li? Haha, Mr. Li, you don't have to be so modest. With the talent you've shown, Ben Huang has lived for tens of thousands of years. He's fought everywhere and slaughtered thousands of races in the spiritual realm, but he's never met a cultivator with such combat strength at such a young age like you. Mr. Li, you humans have a good saying, a fish with a golden carp is not a fish in a pond. It won't be long before Mr. Li's name will be known throughout the human realm. Compared to Mr. Li, those little bastards from the 3 major cultivation empires are just a bunch of clowns, Sakyamapa said with a smile. However, after hearing what he said, Li Daochong was even more dumbfounded. He didn't even know that he would become famous. How the hell did you know? Besides, Li Daochong didn't like to be high profile, nor did he like to be famous. Making a fortune in silence was the way of the king. Mr. Li, you'd rather be quiet than be famous all over the world. Haha, Mr. Li, Ben Huang said that you're not a fish in a pond. You may enjoy yourself in the deep waters, but it's not your world after all. We're off topic. Let's not talk about these useless things. If your Highness still wants to play dumb with Mr. Li, then we don't have to talk anymore. Li Daochong was a little impatient. He had just said a lot, but there was no valuable information at all. Mr. Li is a straightforward person. Then, Ben Wang won't keep you in suspense. Mr. Li, do you know why the Hades attacked the human realm years ago but were defeated? Spirit nuclear bombs, spirit bullets, spirit electromagnetic cannons, super spirit talismans, any one of them is enough to make you suffer. Mr. Li is right. These super-powerful offensive weapons created by human cultivation technology are indeed powerful. Even a great demon king level Hades could be killed in an instant, but at the supreme devil level, there's still a way to escape from these weapons, not to mention the Devil Emperor. The highest level of human cultivation is the Mahayana level, which corresponds to the supreme devil of the Hades. However, the Supreme Devil is not the highest level in the Hades. There's still the Devil Emperor above them. You might as well tell Mr. Li that the Devil Emperor is not the highest level in the Hades. Sakyamappa explained calmly. Li Daochong couldn't help but gasp. In many historical books, the highest level of the Hades that he knew of was the Supreme Devil. He had seen the Devil Emperor in some unofficial history books. However, unofficial history books couldn't be taken into account. They were all just imagination. He didn't expect the Devil Emperor to really exist. And not the highest level? Is that so? Then what's the highest level? Li Daochong asked calmly. Even Ben Wang doesn't know the highest level. He only knows that there's a devil god above the Devil Emperor. Sakyamappa didn't hide anything. Your Highness, are you saying that the human spirit nuclear bombs are useless against the Devil Emperor? Li Daochong continued asking. You could say that the Devil Emperor is no longer a cultivator like you cultivators talk about, but an immortal. Li Daochong remained silent and waited for Sakyamappa to continue. Ben Huang admits that the human race is the toughest bone to chew since the Hades invaded the spirit realm. Because of a miscalculation, the Hades suffered heavy losses back then. However, it wasn't enough to hurt them. After they came back to their senses, it was still easy for them to wipe out the human race. Just as the Hades were about to launch a bigger attack, a fire broke out in their backyard. They were ambushed and the 4 Devil Emperors were almost all killed. That was why the Hades ordered the evacuation of the human realm, resulting in a standoff between the two sides. The more Li Daochong listened, the more he felt that something was amiss. The history of the descent of the Hades could be learned from elementary school all the way to university. However, what the history said was completely different from what Sakyamappa was saying. The history of the human race recorded that the human race drove the Hades out of the human realm with their intelligence, advanced cultivation techniques, and blood-soaked cultivators. However, as the instigator, he had given a completely different history and reason. For some reason, Li Daochong trusted Sakyamappa more. It wasn't that the history of the human race was fake, but it was very likely that it was incomplete. The human race had no idea what happened to the Hades back then. After all, the Hades were the invaders, and the human race was only invaded. No one went deep into the Hades, so no one knew what happened there. According to Sakyamappa, the Devil Emperors were even more powerful than Mahayana cultivators. They were equivalent to the immortals in the human race's legends. The 4 Devil Emperors were attacked at the same time and were almost wiped out. What kind of existence attacked the Hades back then? Li Daochong vaguely guessed something. The one who attacked the Hades back then was an immortal? Li Daochong asked. That's right. It was the immortal that you human cultivators talk about for generations, Sakyamappa replied. Even an immortal couldn't stand it. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame the Hades for going too far. Naturally, you'll be punished by the heavens, Li Daochong said coldly. Mr. Li, you're wrong. The Hades were forced to do this from the first day they invaded the spirit realm. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.